unusual sight, but a sign that there's restriction of movement in place. And rarely would the Onitsha Head Bridge, the gateway into Anambra State, be devoid of traffic on a Saturday.
We are from. We are the voters.
Those who are not restricted are INEC ad hoc staff heading out to various polling units to set up for the elections. In Amobia, Oko South local government area, election officials are seen designating voting areas and setting up for accreditation and voting, which will be done simultaneously. Observers monitoring the process commend the early arrival of officials and materials, even with the low turnout of voters.
For us, the test for a good process is the ability to deploy materials and personnel on time. And from 8:30, 8:40, the process commenced. That's accreditation and voting across these 3 polling units. And I think so far the materials are present. The beavers, only in 002 that one of the beavers had a little issue, but immediately they referred, or rather they moved to the other beavers to accredit and authenticate voters. I think it had issues with verifying the PVCs of some of the voters. But so far it seems to be a smooth process. But when you talked about the numbers, ordinarily we should have about a total of 3,317 or so voting in this community primary school. But as at this morning, on a count, you don't have up to 10 people on the queue now across the 3 polling units.
Others commend good security presence and assistance for the elderly.
I must say that we have a good security presence. Even before the INEC officials arrived, about 6 policemen and women were already on the ground, and we're looking out for any element of incident. So far, there's been no incident recorded in this particular, community primary school where we have, 3, polling units. One other thing I've observed is assistance for the elderly. In polling unit 1, there was an elderly man that came. He couldn't even stand. He had to sit. And they took the beavers to him to capture him and enable him to vote. Those are the kind of things we're looking at. But the real test is the question of turnout.
In Fege, Onitsha South local government area, described as a battleground state, voting is ongoing. As in earlier reports, the turnout was slow at first, but started to pick up. Voters share their experience.
You can see that the voters are going smoothly. There's no violence, so everything is going fine. I am very, very excited for the INEC for conducting this peaceful election. So we are very happy. As you can see, people we are casting their vote, making the choice of their candidates.
Concerning the organization of the voting, it was well organized. The only thing I can say here is that when they came, some of these beavers, I cannot say they don't go because I didn't follow them to go for training. Some of them, they were all telling themselves how to operate it, which is improper. They should have gone for training before that.
In this incident, some party officials are being accused of vote buying in Central School Otu in Nnewi South local government area.
We saw that party mercenaries actually collecting people's cards, giving them, the INEC will give them form to vote. And when they vote, they give it back to party mercenaries who will drop it in the ballot box. And they are buying and selling vote, actually negotiating. It's sad. And probably one party agent there who is very angry over the matter. He has been shouting on INEC personnel, why are you allowing this guy? Nobody should touch ballot box or ballot paper of a voter. They should allow the voters to go and vote and drop the ballot paper inside the ballot box.
One of the observers in this election is the executive director of Yaga Africa, Samson Itodo, who wants political parties to be held responsible for voter apathy. He's of the opinion that many voters might feel disconnected because they see no hope in candidates presented by parties.
I think if there's one aspect that political parties have failed, at least the most major political parties, is in this mobilization of voters. You know, if parties are serious about electoral competition, the voters are their major clients and their major targets. And so if voters are not showing up, I think the parties need to take full responsibility.
The election is being held across 3 senatorial districts with 16 candidates contesting. There are over 2 million registered voters in Anambra State, and observers are optimistic that more people will come out to cast their ballots across 5,718 polling units in the 21 local government areas.
All right, so there you go. Early voting in Anambra State as captured in that particular report. Let's also get to walk you through some of the candidates who had to cast their ballots earlier today. And we'll begin with the incumbents and Anambra State governor, candidates of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, who, in company of his wife, Noye, arrived at his polling unit 002. You see him on your screen there in Usuafia, Aguata local government area to cast their votes. In a seamless exercise, you see the governor cast his ballots and his wife too, and the security agencies. In his reaction, the governor commended INEC and the security agencies, noting that he is confident of victory if the tempo is sustained to the end.
The rule is that once you are in the polling unit before 2:30, you must vote. So I expect that all these people, you can still see a few, I'm sure there's still more than 100 persons yet to vote here. So I expect that they will all vote. We have opponents, but we have not seen the opposition. And but even then, we have not taken the votes of the people for granted. And that's why we're literally the only party, the only candidate that crisscrossed the entire 21 local governments, the entire 326 wards, the markets, streets, roads, everywhere. Even though everybody says nobody is competing against, but we don't take any vote for granted. And yes, we are. The only thing we hear that is actually a concern, and we hope it's not going to happen, is that one party, I don't want to mention the candidate, that their only strategy is that they have written results which they want to swap during the collation process. That they will want to swap them. They were even trying to tell, they had meetings with polling agents telling them not to write the results properly, not to upload the results on IREV, and so on. So they can have room to be able to manipulate. But we have confidence in the system.
Well, from the candidates of ABGA, we move to the candidates of the All Progressives Congress, Nicholas Ukachukwu. Well, there were allegations of vote buying made by the Situation Room observer. Well, the APC candidate, Mr. Ukachukwu, is also re-echoing those allegations. He spoke shortly after casting his vote at his polling unit in Usemenyi Ward 2, polling unit 012. He's also had to complain about bullying and allegations of intimidation of his agents.
In all, if there's no seller, there cannot be a buyer. If nobody's not selling, nobody will be buying.
But if there's no demand, there cannot be a supply. So I think the buyer should be the problem first.
Well, there are some of you accept to sell your conscience even worse than the person who is buying it. Because you must donate your right, donate whosoever you are. Because that's the right of a citizen. So when you now decide to donate it, and somebody takes it, you can't cry foul. So when you blame the society for it. Well, so far there has not been an incident of any mishap or something. Of course, generally, during election, you experience one riot here and there, but unrest here and there. But So far, they've not complained that anybody has died or somebody has been hurt. Okay, so there are incidents where they are beating people up here and there, especially they just called me now that one of our agents at Oto was beaten up.
Where in Oto, sir?
Oto, the community.
No, they like Central School Oto. Like, do you know the particular place?
I didn't say specifically where. But when you look at those things, it is come from a point of bullying people maybe because you don't want to. It might seem good for you today. Many people have been incumbents. If you are no more tomorrow, you think you cry for this side. But if you are, you think that you're doing right. But you know, God gives power. Whosoever He gives, chooses, He gives.
We're looking at images of the candidates of the African Democratic Congress, Mr. John Nwosu, who expressed satisfaction with the turnout of voters in Oduda Central School, Ward 2 in Nnewi North, where he cast his vote. He, however, criticized the alleged financial inducements being reported in other parts of Anambra State. Mr. Nwosu said he would rather lose his ward than resort to vote buying, and he's also asked his supporters to ensure their votes count.
If you want our democracy and you want good development in our environment, you must shun vote buying. I'm happy that I must commend the activities of the Nigerian police, who every report that I have sent has been investigated and yielded the result in catching some of them that must be persecuted. And I have told my agents, my supporters, some of them came to my house to say, oh, you must give us money to buy votes so that you don't lose on your polling booth. I said, I am ready to lose in my polling booth. I cannot buy vote. He who goes to equity must go with clean hands.
So there you go, candidates of the ADC. Mr. John Nwosu speaking to newsmen after casting his vote. So there you go, we've captured perhaps the three leading candidates in the Anambra governorship elections, the ABGA, APC, and ADC. But let's bring you up to speed with more updates as regards to the Anambra State's governorship elections, as it has been largely peaceful and orderly so far, though we hear some parts have been marred by delays earlier in the day with arrival of election materials and low voter turnout across many polling units. And that's according to a coalition of civil society group under the umbrella of Joint EU SDGN2 at a midday situational briefing held in Awka, the Anambra State's capital, where the coalition comprising Yaga Africa, the Kuka Center, International Press Center, IPC, Center for Media and Society, Nigeria Women Trust Fund, Electoral, and TAF Africa deployed 717 observers across the 21 local government areas of Anambra State to monitor the elections. And, well, they have come back with some sort of reports here that voter apathy and low turnout of voters has been recorded in most polling units visited by midday of the election day right there in Anambra State.
The Anambra Election Observation Hub that comprise of the following organizations: Yaga Africa, the Kuka Center, the International Press Center, the Center for Media and Society, CIMESO, the Nigerian Women Trust Fund, Electoral, TAF Africa, supported by the European Union under the Support to Democratic Governance project, jointly deployed 711 citizens observers across the 21 local governments of the state. Nevertheless, voters conducted themselves in a peaceful and orderly manner, reflecting a commendable level of political maturity and commitment to democratic principles. While it is too premature to provide exact turnout rates, our preliminary observation from the partners indicate low voter turnout across local government areas and several local government areas. And as noted in all the pre-election statements that each partner has issued, the apathy witnessed in the build-up to the election appears to have manifested in low turnout on election day.
Well, let's bring you more reactions now. This time, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Kayode Adeluola, is asking the newly appointed INEC chairman, Professor Joash Amukpito, to deliver on his first assignment as INEC chair. The SN was speaking on Channel TV's special program, Anambra Decides 2025, and he emphasized that there is no room for excuses because the people of Anambra State expect the best from INEC.
We have a new INEC chairman, Professor Amukpito, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and this is his first test or baptism of fire. He has given us assurances that the elections will be properly conducted and there will be transparency, and he'll give it everything he can. So those are promises. Now my concern is, has he had ample time to review the processes, to review the material, and to review what should and should not be done, such that he can beat his chest and say for sure that the election in Anambra State today will be one that we shall all be very proud of. But given his assurances, I believe that he'll do what he can in this situation and give us a result or outcome that we will all be very proud of. I don't have any reason to doubt the integrity of Professor Amukpito, who I have every reason to believe that he's an upright person and he will do his utmost. But then again, when you refer to other INEC commissioners in various states and at the center, well, they are the same people who have conducted elections, and a lot of people have complained. Now, don't forget, elections are very touchy issues for us in Nigeria, and many people look at these elections as do or die. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be so, but then again, that's what we have. And so not many people are going to be willing to accept excuses or reasons from Professor Amukpito. But then again, I'm very hopeful that at the end of the day, even if we have a few lapses here and there, they will not be so bad as to give us concern or as to affect the outcome of the elections.
And then the president of Voters Awareness Initiative, Mr. Wale Ogunade, also weighed in on the governorship elections, highlighting the need for INEC's newly appointed chairman to advocate for strong voter education policies among all political parties. Earlier as well, on our special live coverage of the elections. Take a listen to him.
Which day has a political party, the big ones and even the minor ones, have called you that they are running a voter education program and that you should come and cover? INEC must insist before any political party is given the slot to contest an election, they must have a strong voter education system, department. It's not there. And before that election takes place, that they allow them, they will see that they have gone through and educate and mobilize the people to increase the voter level. But that's not done. I hope Amukpito will do that. Even though in fact, a whole show was made of an agent that a whole lot of funds was recovered from him. After that, any news? Nothing. Of course, they were arrested by this same EFCC. Were they prosecuted? If they were prosecuted, was it in the news? Do we know, to serve as a deterrent for future activities? Yes, they are here. Yeah, let them do their job. They are a statutory body. They do it. If they do it well, okay. Maybe it will give some traction to the electoral process.
All right, let's get to Juyu, what Onitsha market looked like on election day earlier today, as captured by our team of reporters. You can see there on your screen, the shops were closed, but some of the traders who registered within the area on ground to cast their votes for their preferred candidates. Some of them shared their concerns about delay of voting in some areas in Anambra State.
Yeah, what is happening here is our polling unit is Pampam line. We are waiting for the INEC to get set, then we go and vote. You can see I have my voter's card with me. We are waiting at that Ward 4. So most of us here are members of the market. Most of us registered here, but we are not living around here. So we traced from the place we are living to come and vote at that polling unit. The security agents in their own side of it, they should fish out those who are buying votes. The vote buyers. I put them to record, and that is it. Then the INEC should do the needful. Although they didn't come out in time, some areas they come out. Some areas have started voting already, as I had it. Some haven't started. Like that Ward 4 have not started. They are just coming. You understand? That's it.
So we are looking forward to see our people come out in mass to vote for their candidate of their choice. At least this is time to show solidarity for good work. So we urge people to come out and demonstrate their right. Because when you choose a good candidate, you get work done. As you can see, this road was built by somebody. This road we are marching on top of now. Before, this place was hell. You cannot determine market. Years back, you can only drop at the bridge and track to main market. But today, you can see the road network. So we're only here to show our solidarity. Because good work deserves another. So we don't have problem with the INEC for now, unless if we see any changing.
Okay, what about security agencies?
Security, yes, perfectly okay. They are patrolling everywhere. I was seeing a presence of heavy security to make sure that everywhere is peaceful.
Okay, so for some people that are still at home, what message do you have for them?
The message I'm having for the people at home is for them to come out. They should not wait till any time. They should come out and be at the same time where we are supposed to vote, so that when the voting starts, you vote your own and go back to your house. And there are people waiting for somebody to buy their vote before they can vote. You don't have to say your conscience. Because we only need a candidate who can work, give us good roads, good road network, and there's so many other infrastructure.
All right, so there you go. We had to do you some of the sort of a background of what we have captured earlier today for you to perhaps get to know exactly what played out in Anambra State. It's a big, big day indeed for Anambra State. The spotlight again is on that particular commercial area. Geographically, not so much of a very big state, but it's a very, very powerful state. It's a commercial city. 2.8 million Nigerians registered to vote. But then again, we understand the elections have been marred by a low turnout and voter apathy. We'll get some perspectives in just a moment. Let's also tell you that about 98.8% of Nigerians collected their PVCs. And so it raises some concerns as to why exactly did we not have Nigerians in Anambra State come out to vote. Let's also tell you that it's somewhere around 4:30 p.m. Nigerian time. The restriction of movement in Anambra State is set to be lifted at 6 p.m. today. We are 1 hour 30 minutes away. Let's take a breather, everyone. When we come back, we'll cross live to Awka, the Anambra State capital, as we begin our special live analyses and commentaries right here on Anambra Decides 2025. We're back in just a moment. Please stay with us. We're back. This is our special live coverage of the Anambra November 8 governorship elections. We're live from our global headquarters here in Lagos, Nigeria. The spotlight again is on that city and state, Anambra State, but it's also perhaps a test for INEC under the new leadership of Professor Joash Amukwito, SAN. Let's get some perspectives and analysis on the program. My colleague Jeffrey is in Awka, the Anambra State capital. Jeff, I mean, you have been on ground. I saw some of your reporting earlier in the day. what we hear and what we've seen is that there's been a low turnout of voters and perhaps issues around allegations of vote buying. But, I mean, you're the man on ground. What did you see and what did you hear?
Yes, Kelly, thank you so much. Our continuing coverage of the governorship election in Anambra said today when the people of Anambra have finally decided who leads them in the next 4 years. Well, the electoral umpire will give that result, will now announce that result to bring about what exactly is the verdict of the people of Anambra State. They call them Ndi Anambra, who have waited for 4 years to make this decision as to who leads them in the next 4 years. As you rightly pointed out, at the early hours of today, we were on the field to report and get to see exactly how things panned out. Well, there has been a concern, given the history, the immediate history of election in the state, 2021, where we had just about 10% of voter turnout, which is very huge voter apathy. Now, the place where I covered in Amobia, which is the community primary school Amobia, in Oka South local government area that has about 3 polling units, PU 001002 and 010, which had about 3,322 registered voters. At about 9:30, the numbers were not impressive, despite the fact that everything was ready, from early deployments by INEC, security agencies. It's a multi-stakeholder event, so literally everybody that was meant to be there before the people come, they were all there. But by the time I left us at about 10, I discovered that less than 100 persons have actually voted in literally each of the polling units. So, I mean, the one that has 1,400, there are 2 that has 1,400. Just about 100 people had voted. And then there was one that was less than 500, about 100 people had voted. So if you do the approximation mathematically, in each of them, about 6-7%. As at that time, I don't know what it is right now, but if you check the IREF, perhaps if it's uploaded, we'll get to see the exact number. But that is just a microcosm of what I saw from where I covered. Our colleagues were in places like Newi, Inihiala, Onitsha. Topo Kuteyi was there, Charles was in Newi, and then others were at different places following either candidates and just covering the election. But there are people that actually also had their own tentacles spread across board, which are the observers. And they are right here with me, who will bring us a perspective as to what they saw, what they've experienced, and what they are inferring as far as this election is concerned. Joining me right here in our remote studio in Oka, the Anambra State capital, where we've been covering this event for days, is Maudi. She's a situation room analyst. Thank you so much, madam, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Achike Chude, is also a situation room analyst. Thank you, Mr. Chude, for coming on the program.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Let me start with you, madam. We call it the calm before the storm, but for now, we've not seen anything that gives us a sense of panic and fear, but we always feel that the real funny happens around collation period, which is sorting and counting has been done, and now those movements will start. But let's go back to the very, very beginning of the electoral. How would you assess today's exercise, and where did you go to, and what did you see?
Okay, personally and my team, we went to Newi, South and North. We met Charles in the field. We found out in Newi North, Urago, Iraq 1, they have 4 wards in that place and 13 polling units. By the time we left, 8:55 a.m., no accreditation, no voting, and the INEC people were trying to set up. And surprisingly, we have heavy police presence in that work, and many INEC materials going to other places, and personnel were still there at that time. They're waiting for their vehicles to come and take them. And we saw some of the INEC ambassadors coming to report to us that their vehicles are taking them to their polling units without security personnel, and they're worried. And while we were trying to escalate, because the police people gave us a police person in our situation room, that we should always escalate when we have issues of security, then they left. But we succeeded in escalating the issue. But when we enter Newe South, it was a different ballgame. We saw voting accreditation going on from 9 a.m. But we didn't see many voters. But it's better than where we left Enugu North. That when we were leaving West, we saw very few people trickling in. And one surprising thing we saw, that we saw market fully open. People trading on today and going about their normal business. Personally, I believe that when they finish with the market, they will go and vote. You know, despite the fact that in the Newe South, all the pulling in we visited, as such as, and we had it on camera, people buying and selling votes, negotiating. How much will you pay me? How much did they pay you in that Newe South? So, but generally, just coming to the election, it has been peaceful. And that also reflected in the election day, apart from what happened in Agwata. Everywhere was peaceful. And you can see people going about their business. And we also saw in Newe South, for like Central School, we have 4 polling units there and 1 police personnel who was sitting very far from the 4 polling units, where Charles covered before we met in the Omuji Mala, where the APC governorship candidate supposed to vote. We saw. And in the way the APC candidate was supposed to vote, there was no single security personnel in the 2 polling units. We stayed there for a long time because we were waiting. We left after 11.
So no police, no NSCTC?
No NSCTC, no police officer, nobody. So we tried to escalate it, that this place, Newe South, no security personnel, and we think they need security personnel. And we left. All the places we visited in Newe South, the issues we have, inadequate security personnel deployment and serious vote by. But because the places we visited in Newe North have not commenced at the time we visited, we left after 9 in all the polling, so we cannot judge whether they too bought and sold votes, since we didn't even see. And anybody you try to ask questions, actually, INEC people were coming to report to us personally if we can help them. They want to be going to their polling units. And those who have set up, and you know, that place is ranked. 13 polling units supposed to have started by 8:30 a.m. because nobody is transporting them to anywhere. They were there, and nothing was happening. So when we wanted to find out, they said because there's no voter, what do we expect them to do when there are no voters? And we saw heavy police presence, probably because it is Iraq. And our people, situation room observers and citizen observers that are covered, and roving observers like us, covers all the 21 local governments. It's also probably a safe view, a few places that there was heavy turnout of voters. Mostly today, maybe we came back after 1, maybe between 1:30 and 2, and 2:30. Many citizens who have gone to do their business or what they wanted to do have come back to vote. But generally, I think today's own will be better than year 2021 second governorship election in Anambra. I also saw that there was improvement in the beavers deployed, except a few places that our observers observed that the beavers, the INEC people complained that their beavers was not working, but it was rectified immediately. Generally, the beavers worked, unlike what happened in year 2021. And generally also, we didn't have places starting voting by 2 p.m. or 1, like what happened in the year 2021. We didn't also see withdrawal of trained ad hoc staff of INEC, like what happened in year 2000 due to serious insecurity issues then. So today is an improvement of what happened 4 years ago. But we were hoping to see like 30% or 40% voter turnout today. But I don't think we will see it with what we have observed, and our observers, both accredited and citizens observers, reported. We not really think we will see what that 30% we have projected, 30% and 40% projection we have made. We are not so very sorry we will see it. I was actually having a conversation with journalists in the Omo Dimala polling unit where APC governorship candidates supposed to vote and voted because he didn't come till we left. We left 11:20 a.m. today. So when we were having conversation and we saw citizens coming to negotiate for the how much are you going to pay for a vote, we saw it as a governance failure, because if you have worked for people, you don't need, if you have actually touched the lives of people, the people will on their own come out to vote and say, for the past 60 years or since they returned to civilian rule or democratic rule, we have fared better. So nobody need to preach, because these people that you actually asking to come out, they know all these things. It's not about voter education. It's the fact that they are actually asking themselves, has this governance worked for me? Has it worked for our society? And in the same way we saw a lot of underage voters. And all of them, when you ask them, look, you can see that this person is 12 years or 30. I am 18. When did you turn 18? Last year. I am 18, as if all of them are 18. And you can see that they are not 18.
Where was this, by the way?
Omu Dimala, a polling unit in South.
I don't intend to cut your line of thought, because I know there is a lot you have to say. I also noticed someone where I covered who I had to walk up to. I said, how old are you? And he said he was 18. Of course, I can't argue his age with him. I'm not God. But I just looked at him funny and moved on with what I was doing. Actually, we're now reviewing the exercise. It's not over. It's still a long walk, or slightly much of a long walk, because sorting, counting, announcement of results are taking place, or have already taken place at those polling units. Collation will take place across board to the local government before, I'm sure perhaps this evening we'll see the opening of the HQ, state headquarters, for the election to be called maybe today, tomorrow, whenever all the local government arrive. But let me go back to where she landed from, and she complained about improvement in security better than the previous election. But again, we're worried about voter turnout, which is a big deal. What did you see?
Yeah,
where did you cover?
Well, coming into the election, it was clear that something was different. Because we were here in 2021, and the atmosphere was palpable with anxiety and fear, and with all manners of disinformation and misinformation, with threats, being passed on social media about people coming out to vote and all that. Virtually all of these things that happened then were non-existent. So once we moved into town, I came in on Friday. It was clear that it was not the same kind of environment. That was an improvement. Of course, we're talking about insecurity. And the election held on that time. We were quite happy. Maybe briefly, where she ended up about undervoting and all that, and then even you yourself, you said you had seen something to that extent. And one is reminded of a story. I won't mention names of. We were told of a footballer in those days that left Nigeria, played for it was under 21, and then he was bought
That's
by some of these European countries, and they said, well, he's a young boy. So it's all about feeding him so that he will grow tall. And they kept on doing that, and it didn't happen. Kept on having injuries and so on for somebody as young as that. So that's why I will stop at that. So because this argument, this issue came up some years back in a general election about certain people, using kids everywhere to vote and the rest. And then the argument was that it's just that they are short, but they are old. But they are old. So that was the excuses they gave. So like you said, who are you? Even some police people came up, and even INEC people came up and said, they are not doctors, they are not nutritionists, so they cannot, if somebody says, I'm this age, who are you actually? Just like you said, who am I? So... So anyway, but generally, the 30%, 40%, it's not as if I think it was more of a hope and expectation. But regardless of what you saw, what I have seen, even if we have a 5% increase on the 10% of 2021, it's an improvement. If it's not an improvement I would want, personally, I would be satisfied with a 100% improvement. That means we are talking about 20%. But we will take it. After all, the general election last year was 26% nationwide. In some states, it was even less than 20% and all that. So we need to have that improvement, especially against the backdrop of the 2021 election that eroded the trust and confidence of a lot of Nigerians. So the onus was now not on us, because truly, in fairness to us and to the media, to you guys, we had done our part. We told citizens, go and vote. This time around is going to be different. Beavers, that was it, the game changer. And then so everybody went out. So we did our job. We brought the youth to the extent that about 76% of young people registered. In that process, it was phenomenal, young people. And so when you see what is happening, for instance, even today, outside, if we get it right politically, if we get it right electorally, and that's what all of us are doing, both the media and civil society, if we get it right, the youth will always continue to determine who becomes governor, who becomes president in this country, who becomes a senator, a member of House of Reps, a member of State House of Assembly. The youth will determine that. So how I wish that they themselves would realize the power that they have. But even when they realize the power that they have, we also have to do more to clean up the system. And that's what organizations like us are trying to do. When we are in the field, when we are querying INEC, when we are asking the police questions, when we are asking, we're saying all manners of things, and just to get the process to work. It is so that people at the end of the day, especially the young ones, will be able to show their power at the ballot box. So we in fact, we visited about 30 polling units in Oka South. We started with Umuikem, that is Ndichie. I think it's a rare. Just like she was saying, they had about 5 polling units there. Of course, on the average, they started maybe around 8:50 to 9 o'clock in terms of voting, because they were already there, they were preparing. And just like she also said, we were also surprised, because if it's Iraq, you would expect they are not moving anywhere. They are just coming there to set up. The people that would have issues with movement are the people that are going to be deployed from that place to the surrounding PUs and all that. So obviously we saw some people, a lot of people gathered, and then they didn't know how to move. Ad hoc staff of INEC, they didn't know how to move. There was a vehicle there. So we had to intervene. What's going on? We had to ask. They said they wanted to go to their areas of deployment. There was no vehicle. We had to intervene. We had to beg the driver, do what you have to do, sort out with the authorities later, but help these people. This is not just about you now. It's about the duty that you owe your state. Eventually, he agreed, and carried them and all that. So we saw that, and that was really a discrepancy. In all of the places that we saw, that we went to, we had adequate security personnel in all of them, all. Of course, from the reports from other areas, from Nnewi, which was talking about, from Anocha, parts of Anocha, there were places that did not have policemen, and not Anocha, There are polling units that didn't even have any policeman.
And I want to stay on that for a moment.
Yes.
Isn't that strange? Because the data we have, the police have said they deployed 45,000, like literally deployed to war. And then NSCDC 10,000. So we're talking about 55,000. So is there an explanation to why anywhere in this state should not have significant? I use those words deliberately.
Look, there should not be an explanation for it. I mean, really, there shouldn't be an excuse. Because just like you said, the number is much. How many polling units are we talking about? Maybe 15,000.
No, polling units about 5,000.
About 5,000. 5,000. Then polling booths. Yes, about 15. Yes, about 15. Exactly.
And they will not be voting in 2 polling units.
Exactly.
And the police promised us that every polling unit will have 3 policemen.
Yes.
Police personnel.
Exactly. So if there's an issue, for instance, that I might think, or something I think might perhaps have contributed, I might not be 100% accurate. It is the fact that some of them, as at the time we were in the field, from information we got, we are still waiting for the allowances to be paid. So they had to transport themselves. And from what we understood also, that in previous elections, they waited for vehicles that will be carrying them to drop them from one location to the other. They will move, they will drop you, carry the rest, drop them in another location and so on. A lot of them were now expected to look for money to transport themselves.
Okay, that's what you heard.
Yes, that's what we heard. That's what we heard, you know. And so, of course, we made reports to the appropriate authorities. Perhaps some have gotten. You know, sometimes there is a delay, usually when they start disbursing money. So I can't speak for the people that are responsible. These are the things that we also heard, because it could also impact negatively, you know, on the conduct of police officers and the deployment of police officers. But if there's one other thing again I can say about security is the courtesy, you know, and this is not just about this election. In 2021, regardless of the tension, we saw real professionalism on the part of the average policeman, real, and we were impressed. Even for the soldiers that were also deployed outside of the polling, units and all of that, there was total courtesy, and we also saw it very friendly. You know, always wanting to help. You ask questions. I mean, you come in, they want to ask questions, they stand up in respect, you know, and then you ask.
Make your point as well as to, because how do we now assess this? If we agree that the election was peaceful, at least to a very large extent, we've not heard of any major incident. Should we be worried about how many deployments were there or not? Or maybe where we were did not have the presence we needed, but there are other places that had maybe in excess of policemen or officials?
Okay, like the place we visited in North, we met some polling units have 3 policemen there. I told you they had 13 polling units there. And one of the polling units, 007, told us that particular polling unit, one of the police officers said that 6 police personnel were deployed to that polling unit, that they 3 have come, that they are still waiting for 3 to come. And I said, okay, the commissioner in charge of this election told us that every polling unit will have 3. I don't know why you people are having 6. So we left them. But in all the places we went, and I know the problem is that in the central school also, that have 4 polling units, that the buying of votes were going on, we saw a political party agent agitating, was ready to fight the other political agent who masked him. Both of them were buying votes, but the way the other political party talks and agents were buying their own, helping the people to vote, helping them to put the ballot papers in the ballot boxes. So it was...
This was visible, right?
Yeah, so your guy was there. He actually captured it in camera.
Interesting.
So we were saying that if he continues this way, there is a possibility that there will be an infraction, violence that might happen. And we have only 1 police officer who was sitting far away from the 4 polling units. 1,
one police officer for 4 polling units instead of at least,
sitting far away.
8.
Why these things? Why this? It's a 3 times 4.
No, it's 12. But he said at least, it should 3 per polling unit.
So
what we are told.
And I thought it's a wise decision to sit far away from the trouble.
I'm sure it wasn't armed, by the way.
It wasn't armed. And you can't bring one policeman to face so, because the political talks, buying and selling votes, were more than the voters. So it was a wise thing for him to sit. And I actually think that there is need for a framework, a mechanism to audit this number of deployment. Because we will always hear 26,000 policemen deployed.
So I want to ask you a direct question. Do you really believe that the police, as announced by the HQ of the police, actually deployed up to 45,000 policemen? Because I'm imagining what it takes to move 45,000 policemen. Do you believe that?
I don't know. They say they deployed.
It's either you believe or you don't believe.
No, in the field today, I didn't believe. Because in so many polling units, I didn't see the presence of policemen. And I asked that question before the police commissioner yesterday. I said, from my own experience of observing elections since 1999 over these years, we will see heavy deployment in cities. But when we go to hinterland, we don't see them. And I was telling KDI yesterday that there is need for us to develop an app to actually assess this deployment. We interrogate it. The time has come for us to interrogate it. Last election, they deployed 34 point something police personnel when there was serious issue of insecurity in Anambra, that you can see fear that when we enter this Oka in 3 days to the election, we have to go to all radio stations, all TV stations. This situation, calling citizens, come out, nothing will happen to you, to vote. It was that bad. Now there is no insecurity, there is no serious contestation. That's our own observation. And then there is 45,000 policemen and 10,000 civil defense whom we do not see in the polling units beside Oka and Anambra. So even on Isha, that city there, many of our observers didn't see them. And then we need to have a mechanism, a strategy to interrogate, to assess, evaluate this deployment. Time has come. Because if we have to deploy for them, we were actually looking for a time that we don't need to deploy this number of policemen and DSS. Because like what happened today, you can see everybody. Many people are playing football. Many people are going to farm. Many people are going to market. Nobody is fighting over anything. Some people are coming. How much are they paying? Some will go back, you know. It's not what they are worth.
So madam, let me take it to Achike just a moment, because I want to move on and come back to the issue of security if we have the time. I did ask her a straight question, but she was diplomatic about it. Do you believe in those numbers that has been put out by the authorities to say they deployed, given what you've seen? Because what we're doing right now, the Nigerian civil society situation review, so audit the process, assess what we saw. We're not saying...
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if it's on the basis of empirical evidence, in some places like the metropolis, you had, like I said, the places we went to, Oka South, and maybe that Oka North to the same thing. You had, just as they promised, 3 policemen per polling unit. We saw that there was good, and then we had the roving policemen too. They were moving up and down. And then in some of because we had to debrief, we had to do a debrief. Everybody had to, tell us what they saw and the things that they had sent to us via WhatsApp and other platforms. And then they did not see in so many other places. These things raise questions naturally, automatically. So where are these policemen? If you do not have, because if you're talking about the polling, where people go to vote, polling units.
Polling booths.
Yeah, polling booths. If you are talking about maybe about 15,000.
5,720.
5,000, sorry, yes, 5,000 polling units. Yeah, polling units. And then times three at the most, it is 15,000 policemen at the polling units across the state, what happens to 30 to 40,000?
That we have the NSC.
If you add those ones, what happens to them? Where were they? These are questions you ask. They are natural questions, and it's not magic. So even without telling you yes I believe or yes I do not believe, do you understand?
You're just proving the data.
You look at the data. So it's for me. That's why I say these things are empirically verifiable. So it's not about do I believe or do I not believe, but this is the this is the data, this is the statistics. This is 15,000 deployment of men and women, security. Where are the other people? Where are they hiding? I mean, it's a simple enough question. And so it is not just this. There are every other issue that has to do with the election. We must ask questions about them. That's our job that we're doing. Because look, the reality is that the argument we have made, if from 1999 you have been deployed for off-cycle elections, 30,000, 35,000, 40,000, it means that there's something wrong with our democracy if you're not drawing down. Because for each off-cycle election or each 4-year election cycle, there are lessons that should have been learned. We would have deepened our democracy and the ethos of our democracy. Would have deepened it with every new experience at the polls. The politicians would have learned some lessons, invaluable lessons, that will help them to prepare the next election. The political parties would have learned some lessons. The people themselves would have learned some lessons. INEC would have learned some lessons. So why are we still deploying that number?
You've raised something that just crossed my mind now. So when we hear good number, because we want to break it down to the barest minimum on each of the conversation we're having here today, because this is a precursor to another set of off-cycle elections that we can learn. We'll learn from this.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
On the other one. So what do you think citizens? How do you think citizens feel when they hear 45,000? Do you think they hear confidence or over militarization or over policing? What do you think radiates? Because that's psychological.
No. It's a mix.
Okay.
In a place, with within the context of what has been going on in Anambra State for some time, I think it makes, to some extent, it makes some sense for you to say, look, we are going to deploy heavily because this exercise must be done whether we like it or not. So there is the issue of confidence that you could give to people who have been used to the violence or have been seeing the violence in the state. In states that are, that have been more or less peaceful, that have been, having more or less peaceful elections, it raises a worry of over-militarization and striking fear in the hearts of the people, really. And that's the argument we have made. And don't forget that we're making this argument in the context of our democratic experience. This is not a military dictatorship. This is a civilian government, And so when you get to that level where people, you have to, deploy men in jackboots and bring with their guns and the APCs and the rest, there's always that tendency for it to cause problems. But look at the fact. Look at even what has happened today. We are talking about the fact, the fact that maybe in some areas, like Mma has said in Nnewi South, where they covered a part of Anocha, we did not have policemen, and yet there was peace. What does that tell you about the people of Anambra State? They are making a statement that they are getting used to the idea that election is supposed to be a peaceful, democratic exercise. The people of Anambra State are getting used to that, and that is a wonderful thing. That even in those places where you did not have serious, security, there were no security breaches. But perhaps, again, there was something Ma also talked about, and which could also be responsible. The lack of serious elective competition. Because sometimes the formidability of the different participants in the process determines the level of the decibel, of noise and the tension that it generates. So if the contestants, it's another way of looking at it, if the contestants are not very powerful and they are not engaging themselves and are not deploying all manners of political tools and arsenal against one another, there's always that tendency for the tension itself, for the decibel, to go down to some extent. Perhaps that could be responsible. So let's not jump into the conclusion of saying, yes, it's all about lack of tension. Perhaps the lack of competitive, electoral process also contributed to the diminution of of the tension in the land.
Well said. I'm looking at the
last 4 years.
Just a moment, man. I'm just looking at so that I can update our audience. The beautiful thing about IREV, the viewing portal. This is a genius idea by INEC. That of course we know what happened. That we all quarreled off.
No, we can't forget. We can't forget.
But we're here now. IREV is a viewing portal. I'm checking out how many results have been uploaded. Out of the 5,720 polling units, 4,339 results have been uploaded, which comes to about 75%.
Yeah,
that's
excellent.
Fair.
Excellent.
That's quite fair. With this, we should be expecting results to be announced tomorrow.
Yeah, sure.
Except, I'm interested in Oka South, which is the second largest, 214,000, and then Idemili North, 245,000. Those are the two biggest blocks. But 75%, just maybe about 3 or 4 hours after the election.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
No, it's amazing,
And it's the same thing 4 years ago. The upload was fast.
Apart from what happened, which you made reference to.
Okay.
That was we didn't know.
Let's unpack some of the things you said in passing.
Okay.
Let's go deeper.
Yeah.
And that has to do with vote buying. I think somebody had told me, although I didn't get close to that area, somebody had reported how vote buying was taking place close to that community primary school Anambra. Now, the Anambra primary school, community primary school is very open, a lot of media presence. So for you to behave anyhow, you'll be caught easily because so much police presence. I counted at least 15 EFCC gentlemen, 15. That's when they showed up to maybe show themselves, just to ensure that people don't misbehave and all of that. But this is 2025. We're still worried about the issue of vote buying. Now, the amusing part for me, or let me humor it on this, when the governor was interviewed, he talked about vote buying. And his biggest, quote and unquote, biggest contender also complained about vote buying. I don't know whether both of them were talking to themselves or who they were referring to. So, is it that there is vote buying on all sides, or what do you make of that matter?
Okay, when we saw vote buying, we saw major two parties buying votes. And I don't actually bother myself about that vote buying because I know it will have little or no impact in this election.
Are you sure?
Sure, very, very sure. I encountered...
I would like to find out his view on that.
I encountered, election is won before the election is day. So many things happening in Anambra. And the major fundamental thing that happened here is that there is no serious contention. There is no serious contention. And that is what is responsible for the seemingly calmness. In 2021 November and October leading to the election, there were 3 major contenders. And the way we were cruising in Enewe South and North, I don't think we would have done it in 2021. There was a political figure in Enewe that holds Enewe down. So that figure is no more there. And so this election has been won before today. Whether they buy...
No, will allow INEC to decide that.
Yeah. But I didn't say the winner anyway. I said it has been won. Anything needed to put in place to win, I think somebody did it to win. Selling vote between 5,000 and 10,000 will not change anything. But all of them are guilty. The party who have money to buy the vote, bought vote. But I don't think it will have any...
both the ruling and the opposition.
They bought vote. But I don't think it will have serious impact. And also, it brings me to the question of if you do not want to contest election, don't contest election. It's a serious business. But if you must contest election, put all that you have in it and contest. And don't waste people's time and waste INEC papers to put on the ballot. Meanwhile, you don't even have posters to announce your presence and what you have to do. And going forward to Ekiti and Osun next year, I think police should do a lot more. Because they told us that they will arrest those buying and selling of votes. They promised us, but we didn't see it. I think they should start arresting them. Because in year 2022, EFCC arrested vote buyers and sellers in Ekiti. Nothing came out of it. Grandstanding is one thing, and taking it the whole road. Arresting, prosecution, and a punishment for it to serve as a deterrent from other aspiring buying and selling of. Not only the buyers and sellers, because most of them are women, I saw in the field today. Even the people who bring out the money, those sending the agents to go and buy and sell, those ones also should be arrested and punished so that others will not buy votes. Most importantly, as we go take it, the police should take time to look at this deployment, 45,000, 80,000, and look for a way to work for peaceful election on election day. So we don't need all these numbers. Many people will see police, they will run away because there is no tension, there is no insecurity, and they will be wondering what are they doing again. Now we are no longer asking people not to come out and vote. We are no longer killing ourselves. What is the business of soldiers and policemen? It will also intimidate people who are not, if you know the history of Anambra, they are not even ready to come and vote before. When they see you, police people, they will even go back. So why should I go and lose my life for these politicians? So it will serve, if there is insecurity, it will police will encourage people to come out. But if there is no insecurity, it will discourage them. It will become an intimidation for them not to come out. So we should wait as we go take it an auction. We should look at this insecurity. And police should also do a lot more. Police is our friend. Having program to meet with the citizens and voters before the elections.
Let me take you, Mr. Achike. You can piggyback from what she said.
Okay.
But in addition to that, she's made mention of the fact that because there are so many layers to an election, and that's why it's a multi-stakeholder exercise, that everybody looks at it from different prism. We're not just interested in the outcome. The process is also very critical as far as election is concerned. So you can piggyback from what she said, but in addition to that, she said that she doesn't believe, that's her view, vote buying influences anything. What do you think? Do you also agree? Or is it that they made up their mind, they'll just collect the money and do whatever they want to do ab initio?
You know, sometimes, I don't know, somebody, was saying the other time that the devil has a way of calling somebody Satan. Calling that, then that one calls that one the devil. So when the pot and the kettle are busy, painting each other black.
Counter-accusing.
Exactly. Then you ask yourself, are these not best of the same feather?
But establish that something is happening.
Are these not best of the same feather? Again, it's very well known that the political parties with money are the ones that spend money. And then people are talking about vote buying. Who is doing the vote buying? The political parties that don't have money or the ones that have money? And then they are now pointing their fingers at one another. You are the one that is buying it. No, you are the one that is buying it. And we all know that they are the ones buying votes. So it's what we see every day. But so politicians are very strange creatures, especially Nigerian politicians. Morality does not play a part, in what they do in their psychological makeup. There is power. So, Machiavellism, the end justifies the means, but there's something bigger, they sometimes or most times they fail to see the bigger picture. That when people stand in the sun and they stand in the rain, they are standing on their behalf and they must mean something. So that when you remember how, if you have conscience and you remember how people struggle to vote for you, even though they don't know who you are,
and they will never meet you.
And they will never meet you, but somehow they believe in you. It must count for something. But for them, it doesn't. And that's a very great mystery to me why they behave the way they behave. You also, and then you asked a question. That was a direct question you asked. I'm trying to remember.
Whether you believe vote buying influences?
No,
influences their decision.
Okay, let me put it this way. She talked a bit about providence. It goes either way. When she says it doesn't really matter, when people, whether people do vote buying or they don't vote buying, the winner is always known. The winner will always be known in general terms for everything. Well, nobody sees tomorrow. But tomorrow we all know that the sun is going to rise. And then after the sun rises, sometime during the day it will get dark. This is known. Again, maybe providence. So already there will be a governor that will be either re-elected or a new governor will emerge. Maybe by tomorrow. It's known. Clear. Even though we might not know who it is. I think the politicians, you see, if for them it doesn't make any sense for them to vote buy, they will not buy votes. They will not spend money. They will prefer to put that money somewhere in an account. So I think deep down they have a feeling, whether we think that it will work or not, they have a feeling that if they spend more, that they will get something, they will get value for the monies they are spending. But the issue is, do they have like ₦1 trillion? Obviously, if a governor or a politician or whoever is spending like 500 billion naira today,
I heard from a governorship candidate.
Yeah.
With this number you've given, if you spend 500 million naira as a governorship candidate, you will lose billion.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought.
Good, of course. Of course. So the issue is this: if you're spending 500 billion, and then somebody brings in like maybe 2 trillion, no matter how unpopular he is, he might win. If what motivates people to go to the polling, unit to vote is money, if 2 trillion will buy 200,000 votes, and 500 billion will buy 100,000 votes, the guy with 500 billion naira will lose that election. That's my thinking. So it depends on what they put. But again, there's a point in what she's also saying. Do you have that quantum of money to spend? It is not as if, it will not make an impact. Do you have that quantum of money to spend? And even if you have that quantum of money to spend, the state is in trouble at the end of the day, because you and I know that as day is day and night is night, they will recover that money back. Because it's not their money in the first place, but when they spend it, it pinches them, because this is money that they would have kept somewhere for themselves, maybe. So it can go either way. It depends, but anyhow we look at it, just like she tried to say, it is wrong, and it will continue to be wrong. How have our people been so much, how have we gotten to this level? Nigerians were never like this. 20 years ago, we had a different psychology, we had a different people. But is it the weaponization of poverty that people keep on talking about? And again, the lack of proper education, not university education, not the 4 walls of a school, but even the education that you get from the streets. That you do not realize that when you sell your vote, you are taking a vote against yourself, and that you're shooting yourself in the foot. They have not, a lot of them have still not been able to make that connection between their state of well-being and the votes that they cast in the last election. So this is the issue, and that's a bigger job for us in the civil society space. We have been working on it for such a long time. I know she's been, doing so much along that line. But sometimes it's difficult. I was listening to a woman talking to some people, as we got to one of the PUs, and she was telling them and saying, look, that she doesn't have time, that they should know her price. I'm telling you, and she was boldly saying it, openly, that the highest, anybody that gives good money, that...
Let me come to you, Madam Modi, and everybody who was part of this exercise maybe have their own parameter for measuring success. One of the institutions that I want you to assess now is INEC, because it looks like almost all our institutions are having a confidence issue in terms of they are literally on trial at every turn of event. So what will be success in your books by the performance of INEC?
Okay.
In this particular election, given all you have seen?
Okay, I think INEC performed this time around, especially in the area of beavers. INEC has this recurring problem of logistics, so deployment and all that. We've been seeing it. So I think it has gotten to a stage we are getting used to this deployment recalling decimal. But I think in the area of beavers, they performed very well. Even the places that our observers saw.
And with the upload we have seen.
Our upload that we have seen. With the places, and our main point actually is this upload. Because that is the only thing that made the changes. After every other thing has happened. The only hope we still have is this upload. And if we see it accurately uploaded,
that's 81% by the
oh,
way.
praise God. If we see it come out fine, and it happened again in Ekiti and Osun, and happened in year 2027, because there are other reforms we want to see that is no longer possible this time around. This is the only thing we are still hoping. So, for me, INEC has done better this time around than, and because the INEC this time around do not have so much challenges, the INEC that conducted the 2021 Oseko governorship election had. So with everything that has happened this time around, INEC has done better. But when they are going to Ekiti and Osun next year, they should face this issue of deployment, this issue of logistics, deployment of personnel and materials. They should try to face it. But with beavers, they have done well. And with upload to now, they have done well. So we are happy, and we didn't see anybody being beaten by security people. They have done well when they deploy them. They perform professionally. We have to give it to them. But we need to audit their deployment of 45,000, 88,000, 34,000. It's time we start auditing it. But INEC has done well today, and we are happy they have done well so far. We hope that nothing happens between now and midnight. So, because if it happens, we call them out. We thank them for doing well so far, and we'll call them out if anything stops. Because in Edo year 2020, they uploaded very fast like this. The remaining 10% or something, they took another 3 hours. We started calling out, shouting, and finally it happened. So we are happy that INEC promised that they are ready for this election. And I'm also happy that the chairman is walking the talk, the new chairman. So he said he will upload, he will deliver, he will do this. We are happy that he's doing that. Because what happened in Edo, September last year, we were not happy. Okay. We are happy here.
I'm talking about institutions.
We'll begin to round up. We have about 5 moments. So I would like you to wrap up with it. And I'm going to build on this later on with the other guests. And that has to do with, I don't know whether you noticed, but where we're looking for party agents. What's going on with party agents?
You know, we
because
have...
First, they're supposed to monitor the process, report to their own situation, countersign the from EC8A.
Yes.
You're looking for party agents?
Yeah. You know, we had talked about it, and there's an obligation for political parties. When you're throwing your hat in the ring, in the political ring, the electoral ring, you have to make sure that you're prepared, and you have to work hard. You have to be able to muster the resources, spend the resources, make sure that you get people to protect your vote. And don't forget, it's not even your vote, it's the people's vote. People who have come in, to vote for you, even if it's 1, 2, 10 people, it doesn't matter. But you have a duty to monitor the vote. So it also shows a lack of preparedness, when you're involved in this process and then you don't deploy agents. So what you are saying is that you are there for the fun, for the ride, because perhaps you believe that you're not going to make any impact. If you believe that you're going to make an impact and that it's important, you will get people to protect your votes. So it's been worrisome. In some polling units, PUs, we saw party agents, not more than 5 at any particular point in time. Not more than 5, the big parties, essentially. So I don't think that is a good one at all. They're much more. They have an obligation, that when you throw your hat in the ring, you must go all the way. You must walk the whole hog. Then, we talked a bit about institutions. She started with INEC and all that. But let's also commend other stakeholders. Let's talk about the police, for instance. They deliberately went out of their way to meet with civil society.
Sure.
Out of their way. They came visiting. The commissioner in charge of the election came visiting and was asked all manners of questions, made this presentation, and she talked earlier about them deploying, somebody of the rank of an assistant commissioner of police
Our
to situation room. So that as we are getting reports from the field, from everywhere, when there is a security situation somewhere, yes, I mean that's an innovation, serious innovation. So that as you are getting reports from the field, there's a crisis here, there's violence here, she's there, where she's told immediately, and then she knows what to do. And I think that is an innovation. Not only that, he told us that the police had actually deployed commissioners of police in all local government councils.
Areas, the 21 local
21
government
local government councils, commissioners of police, as high as that. So that was the importance to which they attached, the importance they attached to this particular process. And I think it's a good thing. This tendency to want to talk, the NYSC also came visiting a stakeholders meeting, telling everybody there that these children that we are deploying, this ad hoc staff, are your children, are our children, protect them.
Okay.
And that's a great one.
Accreditation, Situation Room Analyst, thank you so much for coming on the program. Maudi, Situation Room Analyst as well. It's not over. Collation begins, I guess, any moment from now at the State HQ, where we'll get to see how the local government will file in to announce their own result, and then eventual announcement by the returning officer of the state to know who. But with 81% uploaded, I guess more coming in the next 2 hours. With this rate, in the next 2 hours, I expect everything to be uploaded. So it's a question of moving it from all of the hinterland to the center to be able to announce the final result. But I must thank you both for coming. Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room for this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, it's our continuing coverage of the Anambra State governorship election. We are broadcasting live from Awka, the state capital, where we've been reviewing the exercise that started earlier today with voters filing out to make a decision as to who leads them in the next 4 years. Well, the process is not over. Sorting, counting, and announcement of result at polling unit in significant number of the polling units are over with the numbers we're seeing on IRF. So it's now a question of moving those results to collation center and eventual announcement of a winner. We don't know when, today or tomorrow. But we still have more conversations coming in just a moment. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay connected to the world with Channels TV Podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com. Click on podcast, select the program of your choice, and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Tap the expertise you trust. Touch the stories that touch you. Anytime, anywhere. We live in an era of massive innovation, true ideas that impact every industry and society, cutting-edge technology that gives you a glimpse of the future, intuitive minds that meet the demand of a revolution of talent. The future of enterprise lies in the digital world. It's full of questions and yet solutions. Join us on Tech Trends as we bring you the finest blend of technology and the latest happenings in the tech space. Tech Trends, the tech edge you need.
It's election day in Anambra State, southeast Nigeria, and empty roads in places like Obunika Community and Umunya along Onitsha-Awka Expressway in Oyi local government area is not an unusual sight, but a sign that there's restriction of movement in place. And rarely would the Onitsha Head Bridge, the gateway into Anambra State, be devoid of traffic on a Saturday.
We are come. We are the voters.
Those who are not restricted are INEC ad hoc staff heading out to various polling units to set up for the elections. In Amobia, Awka South local government area, election officials are seen designating voting areas and setting up for accreditation and voting, which will be done simultaneously. Observers monitoring the process commend the early arrival of officials and materials, even with the low turnout of voters.
For us, the test for a
good process is the ability to deploy materials and personnel on time. And from 8:30, 8:40, the process commenced. That's accreditation and voting across these 3 polling units. And I think so far the materials are present. The beavers, only in 002 that one of the beavers had a little issue, but immediately they referred, or rather they moved to the other beavers to accredit and authenticate voters. I think it had issues with verifying the PVCs of some of the voters. But so far it seems to be a smooth process. But when you talked about the numbers, ordinarily we should have about a total of 3,317 or so voting in this community primary school. But as at this morning, on a count, you don't have up to 10 people on the queue now across the 3 polling units.
Welcome back. Our continuing coverage of the governorship election in Anambra State, where we've been following through the activities and the exercise since it started this morning. Well, it's not over because a winner has not been announced. Results are trickling in. When I use the word trickling in, if over 80% of the results have already been uploaded on the IREV, which is the viewing portal provided by INEC, but it's a different matter altogether in moving those results from each of the 21 local government areas across the over 300 wards and across over 5,000 polling units that have now been collated to the headquarters where the official announcements will be made. But our conversation continues with members of Nigerian civil society situation room who have been on ground before, during, and are here after the entire exercise. Joining me again in the studio is Austin Aigbe, is a situation room analyst, and Mr. Bukola Idowu, KDI, and situation room analyst as well. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a busy one for all of you. And I always like to start from how's it been? Well, you were on TV before the exercise. At that time, it was expectation.
Yeah.
Now, expectation is over. It's done, dusted, at least a particular phase. What do you make of the exercise?
I think what we have today, I think starting with how has it been, I think it's been fine today throughout, as expected in terms of the peaceful conduct of the election, in terms of the processes, you know, when the process is going on and then you will say it's been fine is what, what we are expecting. The only area we have, for me personally, I have challenge with is just the turnout. You know, what we have seen so far has been a bit low to what we are expecting. And but all in all, you look at the process from the beginning to the end, and we are approaching the end now. So you say this is pretty still okay. You know, rightly said, 81% already on IREF. That shows that it's even possible that before 10 p.m. today, we should have it 100% on IREF, and that is going to be a good signal for the election.
Fantastic. Let me come to you, Mr. Aigbe. Same question, because I realize that there's a lot we're going to be touching on repeatedly because of the consistency in our observation. But I like a generic overview. You've moved around, you've seen, maybe walk us through the places you visited and made your observations and tell us what you saw.
So first, the way I would like to look at it is to look at historical background. So what I've seen today is more like, will I say expected, but beyond expectation is the flip side of it that in 2017 in this town, what we saw in this election, we didn't see it. In 2021, what we saw in this election, we didn't see it. Why we are talking about voter turnout that is low today came from 2021, when disinformation played a huge game that led to almost an election of what we classified then as an election of disinformation. It was a disinformation tagged election. Because most of the feelers that came out was that election was going to be violent, people were going to be killed, to the point that 2 days before the election, some of us got voice notes saying that we should leave our hotel, that they were going to bomb the hotels. 2021. Now we are in 2025. So what has happened today is fantastic. I went around Oka South, particularly over like close to 20 polling units. In the early hours of the morning, between the hours of 8 and 9, you see most polling units up to somewhere around Ekioka, where the market was operational. People were buying and selling happening freely. Filling station close to the first headquarters, running normal. On the street, vehicular movement looked unabated. It was more like freedom. That wasn't the landscape just 4 years ago. With that peace that has transformed, the peace in this election, arguably, is something we should celebrate. And I want to give it to the Indian Anambra for avoiding disinformation and not spreading same, avoiding to actually create an environment that is not, an ambience that is not suitable. People talked about vote buying and all, but sometimes you look at the political narrative, most of the people who turn out to vote, arguably, were actually mobilized to vote. I think we may get more than 10% in this election, but if we don't, the peace we are taking away from Anambra is very sine qua non, and we must not undermine it. Because if you saw 2 previous elections, you will praise these elections. Is it the Nigerian police? Maybe 45,000 plus deployment. In Oka South, specifically across the polling unit, you see massive deployment of police officials, party agents in a bit minimum deployment level. Voters' enthusiasm seems to be low. In one particular polling unit, community comprehensive school, by 9 a.m., officials are set up. By 9:10 a.m., no voter has showed up. I would love to go and check the result of that polling unit if eventually they showed up. But when we are returning back after that 8 a.m. movement, when we are returning back, most of the polling units we saw while heading out that were not started at that 8:30 had picked up. In fact, of interesting note, maybe this will be very strange. In one of the polling units that is a Iraq center, where you will expect voting to start at least by 8 a.m. based on the fact that in that Iraq is Iraq center. Polling did not start. By 9 a.m., they had not set up. Was there a particular reason for it? In a polling unit by around 1 or 2 unit, polling unit just 200 meters away from INEC headquarters, by 8:30, 8:40, officials had not arrived, whereas police officials were already there. So maybe we need to look at those. Was there a reason why certain centers, city centers did not open in record time? Maybe why others further away had opened maybe around between. But from our report, from what we already see, is that on average, about 9:15 will be a takeoff time where polling started in all honesty in these elections.
Let me continue, Mr. Ado. So for him, if I heard him right, victory, peace is victory. Apathy is noted. Is that what you take away from this? But I also want you to walk us through where you visited.
So I think, first of all, we need to talk about election holistically and not in terms of casting the ballot alone, that is the election. Election is a process. So it starts from, as a matter of fact, it starts from voter registration to election adjudication. Because this election also is possible. If this election, you can't say it's over today, because until you are sure that one of the candidates is not, or whoever one of the candidates is not going to court. Because people need to also understand that the process of election adjudication, electoral justice is part of the election. And that is why you will have conducted an election and then you go to bed and then the judges are declaring that that election that you conducted in 6 months ago, the person there is not the winner, this is the winner. Now, so it's a whole process that needs to be seen through. But the process at which we have today, that people are coming out to cast their ballots, I can say that, look, with what we have seen, with the data we have, I can say that, well, it turned out well. One of the things you need to understand again is that there is no election, even all over the world, that is 100% each free. But what are those things that we have seen that are a bit that we can actually say we need to regularize? Number one, what he has said about late commencement in some certain polling units, most especially polling units in urban areas. And we need to start studying this particular trend. And I think one of the things you also have to know, again, that we normally joke about is that the moment you start tabulating now, you will even see the results of the capital coming last. They will be waiting for the results from the capital. So the same thing about...
The way you're sounding like you're suspecting somebody.
No, I'm not.
Or you're suspecting the system.
No,
I understand.
It's trend.
I understand that.
It's
difficult to understand because the capital city or the urban center is supposed to have the benefit of everything.
Of everything.
Good. And so speed and efficiency should be one of the markers. And then when urban centers don't have it, then what exactly are we doing?
So for instance, now you should have been done with urban center, and so you are expecting from the rural, from the riverine area, from those places that are far out, 3-4 hours to the state capital. But it's possible those places will arrive earlier before the capital you are in. And these are what I said we need to start looking at. And like I said, it's a trend. It's what we have seen. In 2023 general election, in most of the polling units in FCT, they started late. So one of those are the things we are looking at. So those are pockets of lateness that we have seen. However, you also find out that one of the things I've also observed, still on the urban versus rural voter or voting pattern, you still find out that even in the rural area, in most of the local government that you think that are not urban, you have more turnout than in the capital. So you have more turnout. In fact, he was talking about some places that, as of this time, people have not been there. But I can tell you that places you have in this Oka that I visited or that we visited, and some of our polling observers also visited, that out of 200, as of 11, 12, they've just done accreditation and less than 10 people. And then so that particular trend needs to be studied and something needs to be done about that. But again, in terms of, you also have to look at the process of INEC. When I say the process of INEC, which is the election administration itself. Number one, the BVAS functionality. Number two, the completeness or how intact are the election materials. Okay. So you have to look at that. But for the data we got, now 95% of the report we have said the BVAS work effectively.
Well, there's a lot of questions for both of you. But I understand you have some things to show us. But I don't know, maybe you can walk us through it while our audience...
Yes, that is one of the things I'll say. So for instance now, one of the things we are talking about is the BVAS, the BVAS functionality, 95% efficiency, which is very good. Now the remaining 5% we talked about are just in pockets of itchy somewhere, and in fact the remaining 5%, you have 3% of them that were replaced, that were already replaced in terms of the rack tech coming to replace it and then make it functional. So if you look at that, then you give it to INEC that, look, they perform better in that area. Then one of the concerns we had today, before the election, and that we saw that, look, it's actually something that that they really worked on, and it worked also effortlessly, is the understanding of the process and operationalization of the process by the ad hoc staff. Because they were trained late, the recruitment started late, they were trained late, and at the same, in fact, as a matter of fact, most of the training finished on the 6th, which is like 2 days to this election. But we also saw on the feed that they are able to pick up and something was done. So we also need to give INEC that, look, they did well in that area. Then again, you also have to look at in terms of the process of results management. Is the process, I'm not saying the entire, but one of the aspects in terms of uploading, as of now, having over 80% on IREF also shows that, that efficiency. However, this does not mean that I'm actually saying, look, they did well. What I'm saying that can also be the factor of the low voter turnout that is aiding this thing to go seamlessly. But whichever way, this is what the data is saying, and it shows the pass mark. Then one of the things we also have to look at is that you look at the number of cases of violence that happen in this election compared to the entire election. What we recorded so far from our situation room is just 28 cases, 28 pockets there. And when you look at 20...
What's the nature of this?
So number one, you have just like group clash. You have intimidation by some of the, and harassment by some of the, what is it called, party agents. And you also have, in particular place, a case where the security man was, due to his overzealousness, wounded, released the tear gas and they wounded an observer. So when you look at that, it's just a pocket of those things, and it's just 28. So even if it happened in 28 polling units, compared to 5,718 polling units, you find out that, look, the police and the security agencies have actually done well. But my major concern, again, is that we also to look at, in terms of the police deployment. So, and I think bringing 45,000 people, force men into this state is why it's commendable. But I think going forward, it's working by this. Going forward, one of the things we would like to also see is that deployment framework strategy. Because you get to some places, you see 2. You get to some places, you say 3. You get to some places, you say 1. And at the same time, what's that kind of figure? For accountability's sake, we need to begin to look at that figure entirely. Because even if you look at 3,000, multiply by 5,718 polling units, you still cannot get 45,000. So, and you keep wondering, where are the rest?
Yeah,
so,
that's an empirical question that Achike asked before he left here. I know you were nodding. You wanted to answer some of the things he said.
Well, the question about the police. So, yes. I stopped asking those questions. Where are they? Because there are intelligence background to this conversation. Okay. You may see 20 police officers in uniform in the particular polling unit. There may actually be about 50 there, but you can't identify them. I'm not saying there could not be some underneath. The police understand this. So, and don't also forget, while we talk about this deployment of police, over 45,000 is worrisome. In the Situation Room statement yesterday, it was evident that the deployment is worrisome and it needs to be checked. But if you were here in 2021, you would not talk about that number because you needed those numbers to be able to show some kind of show of force that happened in the state on Thursday. A show of force, the military and all of those, trying to show that we are ready to enforce rules and to enforce that criminals don't interfere. Don't forget that this state borders other states and is a standalone. Those questions continue to come. How do we do a standalone election so that people from Delta State don't gain access to Anambra State, for instance? In a dual election, it was about the same number of deployment. Meanwhile, that's just the police. We're not talking about the DSS. They have their own deployment. You saw them in blacks and with their gun movement and all of that. But you also have the road safety. You have the civil defense, all of those. So at the end of the day, do we really need all of these? I also worry when we waste state resource in conducting an election. If this election goes and the number of turnout is less than 20% or even less than 40%, just like you have in the Nigerian election, general election that saw the President Buhari election in 2023, where about less than 30% turn out to vote. The waste of ballot papers is something that we need to begin to interrogate. If you talk about police deployment, fine. Maybe this personnel that were deployed earn some pay. Yes, it may be some kind of waste because it has an advantage. It also has its own disadvantage. Because if you see 45,000 police coming to Anambra, the fear could actually cause people not to come out to vote. That's on one side. But it can also increase the confidence that the electoral system, the security architecture in the state will be enhanced and could be safe. So where do we stand in either of this? But for off-cycle election, it's worrisome. You need to be clear of those border communities and ensure that they are well policed. Those numbers, police will never tell you that there is this person in plain clothes is a police person, but this person in uniform. A lot of them came in 2 days ago from Abia State, from Enugu State. They moved in with their uniform. You could see them. But there's also low police deployment outside of outside of the city center, from what observers are bringing in to the situation room. In certain other areas, they say that you will just go to a polling unit. No, if one of the candidates, let me not mention candidate name, one of the candidates in a particular polling unit, there was no police personnel. Maybe that's the reason why the candidate didn't show up early. He had to wait until such a time. So going back to waste, if in this election, 2.8 million registered voters, and I'm sure INEC would have printed 3 million ballot papers, and the turnout is less than maybe 1 million, it means we will waste about 2 million ballot papers. What is that telling us for cost of elections? It's worrisome for me. So is it not this time part of electoral reform that KD and Situation Room, everybody is working towards, to be to think of reduction in our election administration? Is there a way, not a way, let me not say is there a way, there's a way. Because the beavers that we use today is able to do things that INEC, the former INEC administration had seen into the future. In Jega's administration, the smart card was introduced and it played its role. Today, with the aid of the beavers, integrity in the election is coming in. And people argue that the beavers machine has been able to remove ghost voters. Wherein many years ago, we used to, like it was saying just a few minutes ago, those days where you have votes coming in late are the rural communities. Where, before you know what's happening, the way politicians do it, they'll be asking, which one has come in? Okay, you want to increase the one that will later come in to outnumber the one that has come in earlier. So they're no longer doing the rural community, they're not doing the urban community. Is there a reason for that? Like I said, we need to study and interrogate those interfaces. But beyond that, it's electronic voting system that matter now. I'm not talking about internet voting. Because when people hear about electronic voting, no, they will hack the system. They are not hacking the beavers' results. The result of the Form EC8A is uploaded. It's difficult to pull down a PDF document or a JPEG document and change the data. It cannot happen. The only thing you can do is to shut down the system, maybe having what they call glitches. Aside that, it's a difficult terrain. But beyond that, people talked about all manner of mechanism with which you can transmit. But that's not where we are now. But we must begin to think about, in an election, in a country that usually will be boring every now and then, do we need to still be spending these huge resources in our election? These are questions. And maybe just to quickly also state that even though the party agent, because I see the role of party agent, because sometimes you will ask, what are the party agents doing? I think at this time, we should begin to hold political parties also accountable. You don't go ahead to challenge results. Maybe like...
I want you to hold that thought in just a moment. I'll come back to it because it's quite important that we have 16 political parties participating in this election. Where I covered, when it was announced, the INEC official, the polling unit officer was asking, where are the agents? I was watching to see whether... As at that time, I don't think I saw any agent. And then tomorrow, you'll be... But I'll come back to both of you on this agents matter and other issues as well. But just to tell our viewers that we're looking at the portal, the IREG portal. This is just to praise INEC for what they are doing. When they do well, we appreciate them.
Yes.
From what I'm seeing here, about 89% or so of the results have so far been uploaded. So let me give the exact number. Out of the 5,720 as listed by INEC as the number of polling units, 5,109 of those results have so far been uploaded. Of course, upload may be there, but it's not completed. So there are different series in terms of, but at least it has left, it's right in the reverse machine and is communicating with this portal. So in case you voted and you were sure of the announcement of the result at your polling unit, you could go quickly check at your polling unit, look at your local government, your ward, and then finally your polling unit to know exactly whether it's what was announced that you're seeing.
Yes.
The reason I had to do this and come back to you, let me start from him too. Okay, since I were with you, before I come to Mr. Edo, I was asking, I think, one of the observers, I said, a situation where the party agent has a couple of responsibilities. First, to observe the process that is fair. In fact, under, I think, Section 60 or so of the Electoral Act, he has the power to ask for a recount at least once if he's not confident that the sorting and the recount was properly done. It's according to law, he has the power to recount. So when there is no enforcer of the compliance of the process or from a political party is concerned. Then there's a part of counter-signing. So when you have 16 political parties and you see maybe one or two, what happens if a party that is not present has votes? So that's a question for both of you.
Fantastic question. That is why I said as at this time, we have to start calling out political parties who will later go on media, doing media shopping to be telling people that I would have won. That's why something happened. We are told a few minutes ago that one of the candidates stepped down. It may have been that the candidate deliberately put that story out so that he can use that after the poll. What do I mean? Like you said, in most of the polling units, you can say about 5, 4, 3, majorly 2. What does that tell? Tomorrow, you are going to tell me that you won in an election where you did not deploy up to 20-40% of party agents. You should not even begin to speak if you do not have the capacity to deploy that 5,000 plus party agents, because you need to do your own tabulation. What they do as PVT is the role of political party. You have a responsibility as party agent to observe the process, like you said, take the result back to your party. The party does your own tabulation. Where there's discrepancies between what INEC has reported, you can then flag that, because there's another dimension to that, because results can still be cancelled at collation points. If there are malfeasance in the course of the way from EC8 is written and there's a lot of issues, and you take it back to carry it to the World Collation Center, the return officer can actually query to say, man, I don't understand this, your paper. If there's no tally, for instance, you are issued 20,000, maybe 200 ballot papers, and suddenly you came back with 1, and the number of ballots used is 10. So where are the other numbers? If you cannot agree, they can put on the form and say none and void. Meanwhile, your party would have taken that result to go and be calculating, but you have an agent at that collation center who will then say that, man, party unit 8 has been cancelled. Please delete off from this tabulation. So the INEC result should truly agree with party tabulation if they observe the process adequately.
Mr. Do, your take on this. I know you have a lot to say.
So I look at this in 4 different ways.
Okay.
One, and there are 4 components you have to look at when it comes to this issue of party agents. Number 1, let's first of all start with data. What the data is saying is that if you are going to have the 16 political party having agents in all the 5,720 polling units, you are looking at like over 90,000 party agents. So which means in each of the polling units, you are supposed to have 16 party agents. So you will be looking at over 90,000 party agents. However, the data from INEC says only 67,000 are the party agents that the political party put forward. So when you do the tabulation, let's now say we are going to distribute them evenly or equally across the political party, across the polling unit. So which means you are going to have 11 to a political party according to what they supply. So you are going to have 5 political parties who doesn't have party agent at all. However, that is not it, because you can't distribute it evenly. You only have 1 political party that have 98% deployment of party agents. You have 2 political parties that have like about 80% deployment. The rest, you either have 10. In some instances, people are contesting election, no party agents anywhere. So that tells you, number 1, is the seriousness of those people contesting. Now, even if you cannot pay them, what about the people that believe in you, that believe in your manifesto, that they will want to volunteer? And I keep saying it until you begin to put some of these parameters in place. People will begin to use election as a means of enhancing their CV as a former governorship candidate. Meanwhile, you are not a serious contender. That is one. Then you also have to look at the commercial, the financial angle of this. What it means is that even if you are going to deploy your party agents now into 5,720 polling units at 2,000. If you are giving them to 2,000, you just talked about the cost of election. That comes to who? To the party or to the candidates. So you look at that cost. It's huge. So which means on your own, you must make budget for 5,720 party agents for you to be able to
have your eyes everywhere.
To have your eyes everywhere. That is a lot of money. However, and that is why some people say, look, the money that goes into election is either you are in power or you are in one of the strong party that will be able to compete favorably. Because this alone can push you away.
Does cost already disenfranchise chance?
Cost already disenfranchise a lot of people. What? So how are you? Okay, so that is so the issue here is that number one, you have culturally the practice and the habit of volunteerism is off. Nobody wants to volunteer. In the US, people volunteer to be agents. To say they volunteer. In fact, to volunteer, they contribute resources on their own. So this, you don't have it. So you want me to be a party agent, you must pay me. Okay. The same mentality that says, look, you want my vote, you must buy it. It's the same thing.
We're going to come to that vote buying conversation yet again because it's a recurrent decimal. But we'll go on this quick break. I still have continuing coverage of the Anambra State governorship election. We're broadcasting live from Awka, the Anambra State capital. Our eyes and our ears are all over the place, and we're also expecting the collation center, the state collation center, to open anytime soon. If it hasn't opened, and Channels Television will be on ground to bring you every moment of those announcements of the final result and eventual winner is pronounced by the Independent National Electoral Commission. But for now, we're taking a look back at the process and the exercise. Join us in just a moment. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our continuing coverage of the Anambra State governorship election. We're broadcasting from Awka, the Anambra State capital. The voters have done their part in deciding who they've chosen. The verdict is in. INEC has one responsibility to announce the verdict of the people. We've seen numbers from IRF that close to 90% of the polling unit results have now been uploaded. So all attention, all eyes will now shift to the state collation center where the local government returning officers will file out in their sequence, 21 of them, to announce what happened in their local government. And then the returning officer and the state will make that eventual announcement as to who won today's election as far as the governorship election. But my guests are still seated here. Mr. Austin Aigbe, Situation Room Analyst, and Bukola Edowu, also Situation Room Analyst. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Let me come to you. I know it was landing on his thought, but you continue so that he has a chance to talk. You know, it feels, because we're still talking about money here, funding, party agents and all of that, and the inability of some party agents, of political parties, to be able to have an issue like they've lost because they don't have the capacity to fund putting their persons in place. And he talks about volunteerism, which is perhaps not a culture here anymore. That could have scaled down the cost. But let's expand it to the voters. Someone had told me, someone high up there, I said one day, and it was quite instructive, but I'm beginning to see it. It feels like when it comes to election, whether you're winning or you're losing, it needs financial defense.
Yeah, very true. You see, when you mentioned that, I was like, if you are going to engage in a journey, I'm sure when Channels was moving to Anambra, you had a budget. You have discussed all the consequences, all of the issues, and you also have maybe what we call contingency in case the unseen is noticed on the way. If you do a D- plan, you should be able to see whatever on the way as you are going. But I think, like he said, very correct. Most politicians are beginning to contest elections for negotiation reasons. That I contested with you. Some do that to be able to sit on the table on the day of signing peace accord, so they are able to see who they can negotiate with, like a networking session. Why will you get involved?
I've never heard that before.
Why will you get involved in a game that I mean, when I saw the data in KDI's office, where they were looking at tracking of campaign finance, that one of the candidates had not spent 1,500 naira. For Christ's sake, you see, why do you have to add to the number to be 16? Can we? That's why I think that is important.
Say what you said again. I think I missed it. What did you say?
1,500 naira.
Is what? What is that?
Campaign finance for this candidate. Let's not mention names.
No, you won't. I won't let
1,500 compared to the other that are spent about. There is a data that shows.
It is true.
Yes,
that is true. We track campaign finance, and then that is it.
So there's another candidate who has spent about 2 billion. The one who has spent 2 billion may have had. You can say they had more resource at its disposal. Fantastic. But you don't have the resource at your disposal. So why are you putting the burden on the state? You will see those same political actors, they'll be blaming INEC for not doing voter education. Those parties, the parties are responsible for voter education. You are talking about parties. What's party? They are people full of members. So why can't the members sit in their polling unit? I mean, for INEC to register a political party, there are names they will supply across the federation. They are more than the number we are talking about. See, when we talk about election all over the world is expensive. I don't want to, even SUG election now is becoming very expensive. Because most of them want to wear their title. You know, I like this country where we use His Excellency very freely. You use honorable. In fact, some are even right honorable. I haven't lost election like 5 times.
You came with a jab today.
No, it's painful because we have to begin to deal with these issues. And there need to be some very good hammer. You have to pass processes. That is why when you look at independent candidate, you earn yourself on the ballot. You earn yourself on the ballot because there have to be certain individuals who need to sign you to the ballot. You don't do because you're a member of a political party, because again, that's our jurisprudence. You can contest election. Once the party feed you, that's fine. Whether the people feed you or not is immaterial. And then we are going to see that over in majority of the polling units, less than 10 political parties could not measure up. In fact, if not more, because right now we cannot get it. We don't have the data at our disposal. It's important to nip those in the bud. You don't push the cost of election to the state when you have the responsibility to do same.
You know, he's fired from all cylinders, and I think he knows who is directing his thoughts to. But it's not about the burden on the states, because ballot papers have been printed. The state has spent money. Sometimes there's an obligation to these political parties. And he used the word like it's a networking session. The reason why we're saying all of this is because when you come out to say you want to contest, people emotionally invest in you. Yeah. What does that do to this? What do you think? On one hand, you're thinking everybody has a right to vote and be voted for. On the other hand, it's expensive. So where do we strike this balance? So
I think it's part of the electoral reforms that we need to begin to look at. And then we have to now begin to see how we reduce the cost of our election. You see, you are only talking about the cost of INEC. You are not talking about the cost that the police used to deploy 45,000 men into this place. Many of them brought out from various states, neighboring states, who are going to get out-of-state allowance. Mm. You have to look at that is police. We have not talked about civil defense. We have not talked about the DSS and the rest. Then you also have to look at the cost of procurement, you know, for the election. Then what about the cost, the alternative for gun? And what is the alternative for gun? Because when you are having an election, you shut down everywhere. So some people will not be able to sell. They also lost. That is a cost to them too. So you have to also look at a whole lot of things involved. But what do we need to do? We need to begin to look into electoral reform. And most importantly, one thing that we need as a reform urgently is our attitude as a nation. Do you also know that naturally, I don't even have to have an agent there when there is a trust, when we have an attitude that, look, nobody will steal my vote, that my vote is going to count. I don't even need to have an agent there. It's lack of trust that you need an hide there, you need an hide there. So we need, that is one area I have to look at. And in fact, when you talk about that cost, you also have to extend it to the cost you use on litigation, the judiciary. So, but all in all, what I am trying to say now is that to round it off is that we have to also change our attitude, both from the government and the citizen.
Excellent point you've raised, and the passion that has been put into this is clear that we all want this thing to work. There's another part of the conversation we didn't even get to. Maybe I'll talk to you with other guests. That has to do with what is going on now in terms of the collation center. Remember what fell out of the Edo State governorship election? This hour.
Around this time.
It is this hour. This is
the hour has come.
The hour. I call it the calm before the storm. So anybody who misses this moment is gone.
Yeah.
But I must thank you both. Austin Aigbe, Situation Room Analyst, Bukola Idowu, Situation Room Analyst. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is our continuing coverage of the Anambra State governorship election, live from Awka, the Anambra State capital. We still have loads of conversation more for you as to review the process. Collation is ongoing, but the center, the state collation center, as soon as it opens, we'll let you know. But for now, we're just following through what is being uploaded on IRF as those results make their way to the state capital in Awka. But we'll be back after this break. Join us again.
Stay connected to the world with Channels TV Podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com, click on podcast, select the program of your choice, and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Tap the expertise you trust. Touch the stories that touch you. Anytime, anywhere.
Welcome to our house. I'm Anambra. Coming up on today's episode of the program.
Life is a stage. A bold canvas. Paint on it. String some rhymes while at it. Then enjoy it on Art House. Receive life in beautiful curves, crafts, colors, and most exciting forms. Join us as we savor intriguing sights and sounds. At these times, Art House, life is art.
The Anambra Election Observation Hub that comprise of the following organizations: Yaga Africa, the Kuka Center, the International Press Center, the Center for Media and Society, CIMESO, the Nigerian Women Trust Fund, Electoral, TAF Africa, supported by the European Union under the Support to Democratic Governance project, jointly deployed 711 citizens observers across the 21 local governments of the state. Nevertheless, voters conducted themselves in a peaceful and orderly manner, reflecting a commendable level of political maturity and commitment to democratic principles. While it is too premature to provide exact turnout rates, our preliminary observation from the partners indicate low voter turnout across local government areas and several local government areas. And as noted in all the pre-election statements that each partner has issued, the apathy witnessed in the build-up to the election appears to have manifested in low turnout on election day.
Welcome back. Our continuing coverage of the Anambra State governorship election is not over. They say until it's over. The reason is because INEC has not announced the final result of the election, and the collation center I guess, yet to open. Channels Television is on ground live right here, which was where we're broadcasting from as far as this election is concerned. So we'll get to that collation center, the State Collation Center, as soon as it opens, to bring you live updates as proceedings kick off right there. But for now, we're reviewing the entire process, looking at all the stakeholders, because it's a multi-stakeholder exercise. Election is a big deal. There are so many moving parts, and one of those parts is security. We have with us right here in our studio in Anambra, the Commissioner of Police in charge of this election, CP Abayomi Shogunle. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me again.
And we may have you again. I also have Mr. Jake Pele, the founder of TAF Africa. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
So, CP, you know, there are so many. It appears what everybody has agreed about on this particular election is that it's been peaceful. So kudos to the Nigerian police force. Also, when you do well, we will praise you. And this is one of those moments we commend your effort. Tell us what it took to get here. We also talk about the issue of the Dunbar deployment and some of the implications. But what did you observe from a policing point of view as far as this election is concerned?
Well, thank you very much for that. You could see me beaming with smiles because these are actually what we're expecting. And simply, I will just summarize these as intentional outcomes. It took 6 months of planning, strategic planning, to get to where we are today. So what we have seen today is not by chance. These are elements of planning and collaboration with all stakeholders, including INEC. And that is what has brought us to where we are today. So simply put, is strategic planning.
So was there any incident anywhere, no matter how minor?
Despite the fact that there's always a margin of error of 0.5 points or something, generally, there is nothing to say that this election has not been peaceful because there has been almost zero level of incident that was reported. And looking at the turnout again, by the time the full statistics, the full figures are out, this will definitely be the election with the highest number of turnout in the history of Anambra State.
Do you think this peaceful, this peace that we're celebrating, or this outcome we're celebrating, is based on the effort of the police, or just the docility? Let me use that word carefully. They're just the people not just being interested as much as they should be, because there were complaints to the fact that there were a lot of police presence in the city centers, and some other places there were not that much presence, but they didn't record that maybe any form of incident.
You see, just as I've said, what we are seeing now, these are intentional outcomes. We planned for it to be like this, and that's why we are having it, or we are getting this result. We put in certain measures in place to make sure that we arrive at this point we are, and that is why we are at this point we are. And this happened based on strategic planning, collaboration with stakeholders, including INEC and all the security agencies. We marshal out plan that we want to achieve this, and for us to achieve this...
You've talked about plan. You've mentioned plan a couple of times. What was the plan?
The plan is to have a peaceful election. And for that to happen, we needed to put certain things in place. We started putting these things in place physically like 3 months ago, including the clearance of the pre-election clearance operation we had that ended just 1 or 2 days to the election. We were able to identify those that will cause problem, and we removed them from circulation, and that's why we are here. The citizens saw this, they felt, not only seeing, they felt the atmosphere of peace, and that's why we saw a lot of people coming out to vote. And again, that's the reason why we have recorded close to 0 negative incidents in any polling unit.
So what was the strategy here? Was it, for me to use the word, for lack of any word that I'm trying to remember, was it about over-militarization, show of force with 45,000? or it was something else? Because if you did your work, first, we have commended you. And because we want to see how we can build on what has happened here in subsequent elections so that we get to an election where we don't even need to deploy as much as this is.
Well, the truth is, based on, because each time people try to make this comparison, that in some climes they even go for election on working days, nothing, you don't know you don't know where the election is taking place. These are two different conditions. Certain indices or variables make certain things to happen. And talking about what are the plans, I will just refer you to what we call the path triangle. That's the problem analysis triangle. For you to achieve a desired result, because when it comes to issue of incidents, there is the perpetrator, there is the offender, then there is also the guidance. There is the victim, there is the perpetrator, and there is the introduction of guidance. And we have been able to do two things here. We've introduced more guardianship. Those are the police, security forces that were visible. And just as you have stated, these officers were visible in particular areas where we know that threat could come up. And just as you have said, they were less visible in some areas because we were not expecting certain things in those areas. Then coming about the perpetrators, another thing we have been able to do, we have been able to remove the perpetrators from circulation. So the victims or the potential victims, the electorate are there. The perpetrators that will come and disrupt, they have been removed. There is no way, through lawful means, so there is no way they could come and disrupt the elections. Some of the things they would have used to disrupt the elections have been recovered and taken away from them. And that is what we are seeing today. Maybe off camera, I might share some with you, but in the public, we want to keep it to ourselves.
It sounds brilliant. It sounds to me like intelligence-driven policing. That's what it rings in my head. But before I go to Mr. Afele, is there a reason for 45,000?
You see, this issue of 45,000, I gave these figures last week during a meeting at the INEC headquarters in Abuja. That was the initial plan. Along the way, data is not static. It could go up, it could go down. Along the way, other security agencies came up with their strengths, which we added, which you have seen during the course of this election. So it is even beyond the 45 you are talking about. And I'll tell you the reason for this. We have over 5,720 polling units. And under the INEC guidelines, we should have at least 3 police officers in each polling unit. Calculate times 5,720 by 3, you get the figure. Then the number of collation centers that we have again in the states, calculate that. We have to secure all these collation centers. Then that's from the ward level before you get to the local government level, then before the state level. Then again, we have several states bordering Anambra State. We needed to check the inflow, both things coming in and going out, at least 1 week before the election. We have strategic police locations with men in all these places. Again, we have to provide adequate security for the ad hoc staff. INEC has deployed thousands of staff to carry out this election. We have to protect all these people. And based on that, we need a significant number of officers to do this. And thank God it has worked, and those are the results we are seeing.
Great points. Great. Mr. Pele, the way you've been smiling sounds like you're impressed with what you're hearing. Maybe let me allow you just say what's on your mind.
Well, I'm particularly impressed, and congratulations, CP. It's relatively peaceful, and I must commend your men that I met, some of them that I met. They were very cordial and professional. I remember going out, I told you, I went out, just to look at the movement, the vehicular movement and all that. And many of them I met at the checking point without even introducing myself. The moment they saw this,
They just opened, we passed. So that's commendable. However, I still have problems with the number of security police men that we deploy in an election. Some of those numbers can be very intimidating. And you look at the taxpayers' money that is spent in that huge number. Because you won't tell me that allowances were not paid. You will not tell me that they were not fed. You will not tell me that they were not inconvenienced. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying the time has come for us to begin to see how we can trim the number and still get the result that we got today. I think that this is one of the most off-cycle elections that's been peaceful. Two things played out in this election, apart from, and PC, I don't agree with you when you say the voter turnout is good. Voter turnout is not good. I'm nitty-gritty in observing this election.
Maybe it's gonna, CP's assessment is, was it peaceful?
From the security point, yes.
It's not turnout that is
I was going to tell him, please don't go there. Let's focus on your strength, Truth be told, I don't know, whatever strategy you used, please share it with other CPs in the forthcoming off-cycle election, because it worked, But my criticism about number is not particular to this election. It's general. The number of security operatives we deploy in a given election is too much and too expensive. Can we begin to do and implement strategies that will limit this number, yet we get even better results that we're getting today?
Is it a police problem or a citizen's problem to be able to be peaceful so that police doesn't deploy as heavy as it should?
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. It is not police problem. It is the citizens. There's no doubt. But sometimes, Jeff, these issues are exaggerated. Sometimes. And I'm not being very relative to your situation. I'm talking about generally, Let's take for instance, there was no presence of police in Rivers State local government election, and yet there were very few incidences. So it shows me that election can actually be managed with limited security implication, and you get good results. You will not tell me, CP, that all the 45,000 or 50,000 you deployed, all of them participated, all of them were part of this. Some of them were probably sitting somewhere sleeping.
No, that's
okay. But I have commended you. I have commended you. Very impressive. And I can tell you, not because you're here, one of the most peaceful recent election that.
Okay, let me come back to CP. So CP here, I guess, is trying to say is that I don't think anybody can take it away. Police did a great job in this election.
Yes.
I'm here, I've seen,
yes,
at least for myself. We've heard the reports, we've not heard anything. So that's why I was asking, it sounds to me like more of intelligence-driven policing. But, we're using state resources to be able to put this together to make sure we have this peaceful exercise. That's why I threw in to say, is it a police problem or a citizen's problem? But is there a sense in when people raise objection to significant deployment of police for off-cycle election? Do you see what they are saying?
You see, the thing is, most of these comments are coming from the point of view or the knowledge that people making this have. We are inside. We know what it is. The interest during local government election is completely different from interest in a governorship election. The same thing, the interest in the House of Assembly election is completely different from National Assembly election. And so forth like that. The interest during general election is different from the interest during off-cycle election. Just like the interest during midterm election in the US is different from the interest during the general election. Now, this is an off-cycle election. It's happening only in one state. Almost everybody in Nigeria is interested in off-cycle elections. People come in from different parts of the country to come and vote in off-cycle elections. People come in from different parts of the country because of certain interests they have in off-cycle election, because that's the only election taking place. Unlike general election, where everybody will face their particular state where they are interested in, it's like nobody moves from state A to state B during general election. But in off-cycle elections, it's not like that. So that means the...
So are you saying there's more danger in off-cycle election?
I'm not in
maybe that's not the right word.
Say that.
Maybe that's the right word. That's the wrong word I wanted to say. But I'm trying to make sense, trying to understand what you're saying, because you're talking about convergence of interest. Because you're using confluences to make your decision. That if it's a general election, so the energy of chaos is distributed, so it's easy to manage. But when it's off-cycle election, like one election, aggregated chaos can be very terrifying, and so you need that level of mobilization. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is what I'm saying. And doing this mobilization, certain funds were spent, but it's not as huge as what people think, because there is no Anambra State the hotel rooms in Anambra State I don't think they are up to 5,000 rooms. So that means all the officers that are here have not been lodged in a hotel. By our training, we stay in camps. As a commissioner of police, I sleep on the road that's by our training. So we sleep in camps, we sleep in schools, we sleep in any type of building. Whether you come for election or not, your monthly salary will still be paid, and it is still being paid. You know, but when you go out for special duties, there are certain allowances that you are entitled to. This is as a result of, instead of feeding you, it's called ration, dry ration. It is monetized. It is not something huge. Maybe it's going to be for 3, 4, 5 days.
All right, I'm going to come to you, Mr. Pele. We'll segue to that now. But I want to get a thought from him, then I'll come to you. But just hold that so you don't forget, so you build from there. The election is not over, so let's be clear. In fact, knowing how politics works, the election is really happening right now. This is where the real election happens. The people have done theirs, then the politicians will now do theirs. Whether we like it or not, it happens. So what is the police doing to make sure that, look, whatever happened at the polling unit this morning stays that way throughout the process?
You see, we have moved to another security layer for the coalition period at the world level. We have moved into another security layer, the same set of officers with another group, now more combatants, armed. They are protecting the coalition process. And in every coalition centers, we have armed group as we speak that are physically there to make sure that nothing happens to those ballots. Transportation of those results again from the coalition centers at the world level to local government is another layer again. Coming to the state capital is another layer. Post-election period, celebration time, the first 2 or 3 days, that is another layer of protection again. So all this, we have mapped out the strategy we are going to use, and from the beginning, right from 6 a.m., when all the material started leaving the rack to the polling units, and up to now, everything is working as we expect it to be.
Fantastic. So, Mr. Pele, we're wrapping up. So you have the last say.
Yeah, so let me weigh in on what CP has been saying. CP, we don't want you inconvenience. We don't want you to sleep on the road.
No, it's our job. We are not complaining about that.
If it's not
that's what we are trained to do.
If we trim down the entire architecture, then people will be more comfortable. That's one. Number two, I want to say that maybe because you don't want to say it on air, the strategy of getting the vigilante out of this process worked for you.
It's part of it.
Yeah.
I
know you don't want to say it. I can say it.
I can say it. It's part of it. We made a statement that
was
we
brilliant.
don't want them to be part of it.
You've always maintained that position.
Yeah, that was brilliant. That was very brilliant. That was very brilliant. Secondly, while we also pat you on the back, we want to pat on the back of the Anambra people that decided that they wanted peace. They played a critical role in the peace, in the overall peace that you have achieved.
No doubt about
that. Yeah, exactly. But I also, another concern, some of the things, there was something you kept saying about taking out some people in order to maintain peace. I hope their rights were not violated.
Taking out some people legally out of circulation.
Yeah, he said that.
They were arrested, they have been prosecuted, exhibits have been recovered.
You know, CP, I'm enjoying what is going on. You know what is going on? We are auditing the process.
Exactly.
So it's not anything personal.
Their human right is very important.
We're auditing the process. So your last thought, Mr.
Yeah, like I said, their human right is very important. And I want to see this fantastic, you kept using word strategy. Strategy is better than energy. I will relate the numbers that we're deploying as energy. Let us move from the point of energy to actually strategic implementation. With strategic implementation, you trim. I have a project all over the country. I have very limited staff that I know can do the job. I don't need to go and hire the entire country. Sorry, Prissy. Sorry. I don't need to go and hire the entire country to do the job I know that 5 people can do.
No problem.
So you see, we will keep harping on you and the IG.
Society, so we'll keep
harping on you and the IG to trim down the number. Yes, sometimes those numbers can be so intimidating that it creates more chaos. But congratulations, you have done extremely well. Teach other commissioner of police what you have done. Right. Let them this strategy. And let's have this strategy across board. Congrats.
More elections are coming next year and before the big one in 2027. CP Abayomi Shogunle, Commissioner of Police in charge of the election, congratulations so far. We hope we congratulate you in the entire process because it's still on. Thank you so much for the work. You and your men who have made huge sacrifice because sometimes you don't get your flowers, but we give you your flowers.
Exactly.
To say thank you for your service. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let me also add, I'm also the CP election planning, monitoring, and evaluation for the whole federation.
Oh,
so
wow.
Everything election in Nigeria
so
at
that's,
the moment.
You people have your...
I didn't know. There was a time that I trained...
We're totally out of time.
Yeah, there was a time that I trained but I didn't see you then. Maybe.
Mr. Pele, we're totally out of time.
I know.
This relationship is good. Jacob Pele is the founder of TAF Africa. Thank you, gentlemen. And thank you for your service yet again. Thank you. We appreciate it. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, the conversation continues. Is the Anambra State governorship election. Channels Television's continuing coverage of that exercise. We said it's not over because a winner has not been announced. I keep updating you to the effect that from what I see on IREV, let me give you my latest number before I go on this break. Uploading, yes, 95% of the results have so far been uploaded from what I see here on the IREV portal for this election. That's a good development. But we'll be back after this break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay connected to the world with Channels TV Podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com. Click on podcast, select the program of your choice, and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Tap the expertise you trust. Touch the stories that touch you. Anytime, anywhere. There are places you would like to go. There are faces you would like to see.
My palm is bruised. It's a tiny scar, but it's very painful.
Too many exciting things happening all at once.
From time I've always loved playing the villain.
But you can't be everywhere. Guess what? Yes, we can. Your favorite lifestyle content lives here. Let us be your eyes and ears here on Entertainment News on Channels Television.
In every show, we bring you closer to the fastest growing movie industry in the world. From the making to the premiere. Get up close and personal with the stars and industry captains, plus reviews and much more. Nollywood Uncut, every week at these times.
The new INEC chairman, Professor Amokuton, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and this is his first test or baptism of fire. He has given us assurances that the election should be properly conducted and there will be transparency, and he'll give it everything he can. So those are promises. Now my concern is, has he had ample time to review the processes, to review the material, and to review what should and should not be done, such that he can beat his chest and say for sure that the election in Anambra State today will be one that we shall all be very proud of. But given his assurances, I believe that he'll do what he can in this situation and give us a result or outcome that we will all be very proud of. I don't have any reason to doubt the integrity of Professor Amokuton, who I have every reason to believe that he's an upright person and he would do his utmost. But then again, when you refer to other INEC commissioners in various states and at the center, well, they are the same.
Welcome back to Channels Television, continuing coverage of the Anambra State governorship election live from Awka, the state capital, where we've been monitoring the process and the exercise as we speak. The State Collation Center is yet to open. Of course, we have been updating you to the fact that almost all of the results have so far been uploaded on IREV, the polling unit results, about 95% from what we see available to us on IREV, which you can also access at your time. But we'll continue the conversation with observers who have been observing the process. We just finished talking with some of the observers as well as the CP in charge of this election, Abayomi Shogunle, who we've commended for the efforts of the police so far in their deployment or in their ensuring that peace is maintained. But joining us right here in our studio in Oka is Samson Itodo, Executive Director, Yaga Africa. Mr. Sam, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, I know it's been a long day.
Very long day.
And it's not over.
It's not yet.
It's
not yet.
Over. Amina Zakaria is also joining us. She's a board member of TAF Africa. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Samson, so we've talked about a lot of things, and so I want to explore a lot more angles. But I like to. We've been on the field together. We saw what happened there, but you expanded your reach. Your people are all over the place. Talk to us about the reports you got, and what are they?
Well, Geoffrey, preceding this election, there were 3 tests that underpinned this election. The first one was the efficiency test, and it's to what extent INEC will manage the logistics for this election, because historically, Anambra is known for having late commencement of elections. In fact, in the last election in 2021, it was at 7:30, only 17% of polling units recorded early arrival of polling officials. And at Yaga Africa, which is part of a broader civil society effort, we deployed observers to a random sample of polling units. So our data is representative. So as at 7:30 a.m. this morning, polling officials had arrived in 49% of polling units. What that tells you is that there's a marked improvement between 2021 and 2025, that INEC did improve in its logistic deployment with respect to commencement of elections. So there's a marked improvement from 17% in 2021 to 49%. It's a marked improvement, even though we had expected that it would even go higher than that. But you also see cases where there are still some shortages, there are still some delays in some of the polling units. So to a large extent, we can say so far that INEC appears to be meeting the efficiency test. You can also see that on the IREV, as at now, over 90% of results are already on the IREV. That also tells you that it speaks to the efficiency of the Electoral Commission. The second relates to the impartiality, which is 4 security agencies. And I dare say that, yes, we commend the security agencies. This election, was conducted in a very peaceful and safe environment. We have to commend the people of Anambra. I think the last critical point is the integrity test. We cannot speak to that at the moment because the collation processes are on. Once the collation processes conclude, YIGA Africa will issue our own verification statement. But I can say with a high degree of confidence that at YIGA Africa, we already have the results from our sampled polling units, and our confidence level is high. But we would wait for INEC to announce the winner before we issue our final statement to verify. If the results are altered in the course of these collation processes, we are going to be able to detect it. But one thing I can say with a high degree of confidence, that even though the voter turnout is still very low, but the voter turnout for this election will be higher than the 10% that was recorded in 2021. But for this election, it will still be higher than that. Will be somewhere between either 19 or 21 or 20%, that range. We're still cleaning up the data. But I can confirm that the turnout for this election will be higher than 2021. However, it will still be very low because it would not cross even the 25% mark.
So I know you had projected 20%, but less than 20%. So that sounds like a good thing, even if no matter how minimal it is.
That's right.
Let's come back to you, Ms. Amina. You are wearing a couple of caps, but I want to speak to you from the point of a former national commissioner of INEC. And I want you to assess the exercise from what you have seen. You now observe things. You've been there when you were the ones whose people put fire to their feet, but now you're the one now putting fire to the commission's feet. Tell us what you've seen.
Well, I think there's so much. It seems organized. The election seems to have gone very well. It's been peaceful, but naturally, Anambra has not been not peaceful as other states, but it's been more peaceful that we've had in the earlier elections. And people have conducted themselves well, even though we've had pockets of incidences of complaints of vote buying, but so far it has not turned into a violent activity. So for me, I think it's been quite peaceful, it's been organized, and I've just gone through some of the IREV sheets. I've seen very neat reporting. Yeah, the uploads are very neat, so it's kind of comforting to know that possibly there will be no cancellations, no mutilations so far from what I've seen, and I'm quite impressed by and I'm quite impressed with the logistics too, with the early commencement of the elections, because we've had very difficult times in 2017. It was very difficult in 2021. It was difficult. But this time we haven't had reports of adverse delays in commencement of the polls. So by and large, I wish to commend INEC on this. It's a very good improvement, and I wish we can further improve on what we have.
Let me raise some of the issues I've raised with other guests on the program. And you mentioned it in passing, but let me start with you, Mr. Hodo. Somebody had said here, I think it was somebody from the Situation Room had mentioned that, look, there was vote buying, but she doesn't believe, or maybe in her view, she thinks that whether people were selling their vote or their vote being bought doesn't really affect anything. Is that a view you share? And how much of that did you see, did you witness, or did your people report? How widespread was it?
Yeah, so in the statement that, the Election Observation Hub, comprising of 7 organizations, including TAF Africa, issued this afternoon, we did confirm that there were cases of vote buying. In fact, our observation clearly reveals that the perpetrators of this offense are devising new methods, very covert methods of buying votes. They are not coming to the polling stations with cash anymore. What you're seeing is that political mercenaries, are taking the records of voters after casting their votes and scheduling them for post-voting inducement.
How do they do that?
Well, it's simple. Of course, if you look at the whole setup, in certain cases, there's a violation of the secrecy of the vote. The way the cubicles were set up, and they were set up in a way that people could expose, their votes, because the agents are there and they are watching. Beyond the party agents, there are also other supporters who are watching to be sure, to confirm that you actually thumbprinted for their candidates. We also see cases where POS were also used, for procuring votes. So, yes, it did happen. I think as an election observer, it's not within our remit to determine what could have been the choices of people, because we're not involved in conducting perception surveys or exit polls. We're not interested in voting choices. What we're interested in is the process for which, voters exercise their franchise, ensuring that that process is transparent, is credible, and is devoid of any form of infirmity. So that's our preoccupation. And once that process is transparent, then you can say that the overall outcome is a reflection of the will of the people, and that it is not a procured outcome, but that people have made this choice, conscious of the consequence of whatever choice that they make. So to a large extent, we would say that, yes, there were cases of vote buying, but the INEC chairman prior to this election had mentioned consistently, the point about vote buying, including the security agencies. And the bigger question is, yes, we saw the EFCC, we saw other security agencies, and how come there haven't been any arrest, despite the fact that one issue that resonates with all the election observers is this point about vote buying, but we haven't seen any arrests. So it really calls for, greater enforcement, or perhaps enactment of stiffer laws that helps regulate this kind of deviant political behavior.
Madam Zachary, you've been on the commission, and the question around the inability to curb vote buying. This is 2025. I see vote buying as bending the curve, bending the line, one way or the other. Whether it's significant or not is a different matter altogether. Why is it difficult to curb?
I think the problem is there's a disconnect between policy and implementation. While the policy makers give out the rules on how to operate at the lower level, when you come to the lower level, implementation it's gone off trajectory, possibly because they get intimidated. Sometimes the staff get intimidated. Sometimes they actually put the cubicles in such a way that the votes don't show. Somewhere along the way, somebody turns the cubicles.
Sorry for cutting. How should the cubicle be positioned? Because I noticed the way it was positioned at the polling units where I was. How should it be positioned? If you can give like a description, if you will.
It should be positioned away from the crowd, a bit away from the crowd, but with adequate security. And the box should be positioned close to the cubicle so that you can just drop it.
Yes, sir.
Meanwhile, we could also think outside the box and make some enclosure for these cubicles. We've been talking about this vote buying since maybe 2013. I think 2013, it was here we first noticed the vote buying. It became glaring in 2016 in Edo. Then it became, now it's more brazen and open. There's even a negotiation, a haggling. How much are you willing to pay? How much am I willing to take? Besides educating the public, I think we need to do more. Maybe we should move these cubicles maybe into the classrooms or into an exclosure. I remember when we were young, the elections we held in the 80s, there was like some thatch enclosure or zinc enclosures where you went in to vote. Nobody saw your vote. So if maybe INEC should move to that, or maybe the nation should find a way of making these cubicles enclosed.
The rule is that nobody should see how you voted.
Yes.
They will see even the candidates breaking that rule. I think I even saw the governor today display. What do you make of all of that?
Education.
Is it lack of, is it excitement? Is it, I did voted for what exactly is going on here?
Impunity.
Yeah.
That's just it. It's just impunity. Because the candidate feels...
I remember Muhammad Buhari did it as well.
Because, exactly. Because if the president can do it, because he feels he's above the law, and there will be no consequence for that action, they will continue to do it. That's why you need stiffer provisions in our legal framework, in the Electoral Act, that goes beyond criminalizing this, but actually imposing stiffer sanctions. Because what you currently have in the Electoral Act talks about bribery and conspiracy. We have to construct or construe our legislation in a way that it properly defines what, is vote buying and vote selling, and also prescribe sanctions for them. Of course, in addition to, this continuous public education, because we actually need to continue to educate people. Because if you record this level of turnout, which is, less than 25%, and there was still this rate of vote buying, something does not add up here. And I think that we need to go beyond, this sort of conversation to really take in stronger actions against people who sell and people who buy.
Let's talk about ballot paper handling. I remember that was, when you look at someone, I think it was in 2021, when we look at the number of invalid votes as far as elections are concerned. But because, for instance, Mr. Tode has mentioned this over and over again, the state spent a lot of money to print these ballot papers and put all of this together. First, people will not show up. And then you show up, you mess up the paper. So what else can be done to make sure that that is also minimized as much as possible? Because I'm saying this on the backdrop of there's voter apathy. That's one layer of reducing the number. And then you now further reduce the number. Because let's even say we're impressed with 20%. What is 20% of the total number of votes? At the end of the day, this election may be decided by maybe 500,000 people, 400,000 people, as against 2.8 million. Now, we can even make it worse, as against over 5 million people who are people of Anambra State. So talk to us about it.
Well, I think I will borrow from Sam about the lack of education, lack of motivation by the political parties, because they are supposed to mobilize. They are supposed to motivate. Good governance motivates. They are supposed to mobilize people to vote. They are supposed to make it like a festivity of some sorts. Get the people to come out and vote. INEC can only do so much. INEC keeps doing voter education, also mobilization, but it's not the work of INEC to mobilize. It's the work of the political parties to mobilize. And if there's good governance, people will be willing to come out and vote for a particular person. I don't know, I can't see why you spend years piling up money for vote buying rather than providing good governance that will make people want you to even have a third term if possible. Because some people are so good, some public will start saying, maybe we need a third term, something like that. But if we don't see that in Nigeria, we don't see that. We see the political parties are just there for candidature. Yeah. You just get a candidature, you get voted, and that's the end of it. The parties are dead for the next 4 years. Even within the lower level, there's just one party in this state. They need to work harder in motivating and mobilizing people to come out and vote. Anambra is really a bad case of poor turnout. I think it's one of the worst in the country.
That we have.
Yeah, it's one of the worst. So this 20%, we're excited, but it's really not a good starting point.
Let me come to you, Mr. Todo. The question is a straight why. If a state has been consistently turning out low voter numbers, election in and out, with the worst in recent history, which was the last one, we're hoping for an improvement this time. But this improvement is actually catching up with the previous one. So it's not as if we're doing anything extraordinary. Without going into anything specific, what exactly, in your view, is responsible?
I think there are several factors that may be responsible. The first one is about culture. And the question is there a voting culture
in Anambra?
In Anambra? The other question is, and you need to situate this also within the broader national question. Whether, the people of Anambra do feel that the politics of Nigeria, has brought any development to them, and what's really in it for them. And you clearly see that even if, and I've said this repeatedly, that compared to other states, when you think about electoral fraud and irregularity, Anambra seems to be doing better than some states. So when you say your vote will not count, Anambra is not really a state where we can say votes don't count, given elections. So maybe it's the question about socialization, and it's the politicians, are they really speaking the language that people want to understand? And then also whether the parties are presenting candidates that can excite, voters to show up to vote. And the other thing is the fact that for a lot of people, if governance, they don't feel the impact of governance, there's no way they're going to participate in the process. And I think that, especially for a state like this, prior to this election, everything, was provided for voters, to cast their vote. Yes, in places like Ihala or other riverine areas or places that were ravaged by some level of insecurity, you can say there are threats, in those locations. But there was also massive deployment, in those locations. So I think that we have to, as a country, really think about this issue about turnout, because it's got some implication for democratic legitimacy. Again, the minority in Anambra are going to determine for the majority.
Yet again.
Yet again. And that is an anomaly. But it's not just Anambra. If you look at this nationally, the minority, because you only recorded 25% turnout in the presidential elections. So just a few, just 25% of Nigerians determined for the other 75% of us. I think that as a country, we need to consider this a national emergency, and we should be bothered that people are not showing up, to cast their vote. And I'll put this at the doorsteps of the politicians, because they are the beneficiaries of this vote. They need to rethink their political mobilization strategy, speak the language that people want, present candidates that can excite people, and then debate issues and not, exploit those fault lines when it's time for elections.
Madam Zachary, the issue of crisis of confidence bedevils our institution. Now, as much as we blame the political parties, which some of them, like anything that will undermine the system is their forte. If some of them, if the system works, they will not succeed. But INEC has its own issues as well. From where you sit and what you've known as sitting inside of INEC, what has to be done for the people to trust INEC yet again? Because we've seen in some part INEC really make those efforts. We've seen their failures. We've also seen effort.
Yeah, INEC has made a lot of effort. And as I always say, INEC never intends to fail when we plan for these elections. There's no intention for failure. It's just that there's so many factors affecting the election. And it's not just INEC that runs the election. Remember, there's security agencies, there's the ad hoc staff, there's so many other components of the election. Even the press is part of the election. So if those are not doing well and are not supportive enough of INEC, there's only so much INEC can do. Even though INEC can still take stock, there's a chance to take stock after every election and improve on what has gone wrong. Sometimes INEC also kind of goes to sleep on some fundamental issues, even though there's a lot of improvement in terms of technology and systems. But I think they need to do more in terms of training their staff. That disconnect between policy and implementation is very glaring. We always had to correct issues on the field because they are not aware of what the policy was supposed to be. So they need, those 4 years, they need to continuously train their staff and make their staff as efficient as the headquarters. At the same time, the EOs that keep replacing ad hoc staff, I heard on TV that some of the staff were being taught at the table. That means they were replaced. They never went through training. So we need to sanction those kind of EOs. We get these reports. Unfortunately, there's no sanctioning in INEC. After the election, once there's a euphoria, somebody has won and you people praise INEC for a good job done, everything goes to sleep because there's no sanctions, no reward structure. So they need to introduce sanctions and reward structure. That will get the staff up and about. Some EOs don't deploy. They've got the money, they don't deploy the vehicles. NURTW may be there, but they don't, instead of 10 vehicles, they take 6. No sanctions. So they need to sanction those staff that have.
We have just about 4 or 5 minutes to wrap up. So one question is in 2 minutes. So this, I always say this is the most important hour when it comes to the election, or one of the most important hours, which has to do with the collation exercise. I don't think the state collation has opened yet from the, I've been working my gadgets to find out exactly what's happening, and nothing yet. But how do we get to a point, something where we can, after elections that we've all gone to the field to witness, we should just go to sleep. But you can't go to, this is the worst time to go to sleep right now, this hour.
Yeah. Actually, this is the worst time. You know, yes, this election seemed to have gone well. I'm very optimistic that the collation will go well. But you see, this election was not as competitive as it should have been. And if the actual test, especially even for the security agencies, is, think about it, if it was an election where indeed, you know, the federal might is determined, you know, to sway the outcome of the elections, that is when our institutions will be put to serious test. And I'll be looking forward to how those institutions respond in an election that is highly competitive. And I think one of those elections next year, just states like Osun, are the kinds of elections that we'll be looking at, also Ekiti. But I think that INEC deserves commendation so far. But again, we're in the very crucial moments, and we'll be watching over this. Like I mentioned, YAGA Africa already have the results from the sample polling units, and we'll release our final statement once INEC issues its results.
30 seconds. How inclusive was this election? How inclusive?
Well, we've seen some improvement because we've been striking, and thank God Jake is not sleeping. we have been striking. We've seen how the elderly, the sick and the pregnant women have been given attention ahead of other voters. We've seen how disabled people have been assisted. So by and large, we're coming of age in terms of inclusivity.
Fantastic. Samson Itodo, Executive Director, YAGA Africa, Amina Zakaria, Board Member of TAF Africa, and a former National Commissioner of INEC. Thank you, Madam.
And
thank you.
Thanks. Always a delight. Thank you.
It's not over yet.
Yes.
Until it's over. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, it's going to be the final leg of the conversation. This time, we're going to talk about the press and how it fared and issues around freedom. In just a moment, stay with us.
Stay connected to the world with Channels TV Podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com. Click on podcast, select the program of your choice, and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Tap the expertise you trust. Touch the stories that touch you. Anytime, anywhere. We live in an era of massive innovation, true ideas that impact every industry and society, cutting-edge technology that gives you a glimpse of the future, intuitive minds that meet the demand of a revolution of talent. The future of enterprise lies in the digital world. It's full of questions and yet solutions. Join us on Tech Trends as we bring you the finest blend of technology and the latest happenings in the tech space. Tech Trends, the tech edge you need.
It's a fast beat, unpredictable and full of surprises. The unforgettable moments, unprecedented passion. The victories and defeats in the world of sports makes it engaging. Fasten your seatbelts as we take you through every update in the news and on our shows. We define the moments of true sports. Join us.
In all, if there's no seller, there cannot be a buyer.
If nobody's not for selling, nobody will buy.
But if there's no demand, there cannot be a supply. So I think the buyer should be the problem first.
Well, there are some of you accept to sell your conscience even worse than the person who is buying it. Because you must donate your right, donate whosoever you are. Because that's the right of a citizen. So when you now decide to donate it, and somebody takes it, you can't cry foul. So when you blame the society for it. Well, so far there has not been an incident of any mishap or something. Of course, generally, during election, you experience one riot here and there, but unrest here and there. But so far, they've not complained that anybody has died or somebody has been hurt. Okay, so there are incidents where they are beating people up here and there, especially they just call me now that one of our agents at Oto was beaten up.
Where in Oto, sir?
Oto, the community.
No, they are like Central School Oto. Like, do you know the particular place?
I didn't say specifically where. But when you look at those things, it is come from a point of bullying people maybe because you don't want to. It might seem good for you today. Many people have been incumbents. If you are no more tomorrow, you think you cry for this side. But if you are, you think that you're doing right. But you know, God gives power. Whosoever He gives, chooses, He gives.
The rule is that once you are in the polling unit before 2:30, you must vote. So I expect that all these people, you can still see a few, I'm sure there's still more than 100 persons yet to vote here. So I expect that they will all vote. We have opponents, but we have not seen the opposition. And but even then, we have not taken the votes of the people for granted. And that's why we're literally the only party, the only candidate that cries across the entire 21 local governments, the entire 326 wards, the markets, streets, roads, everywhere.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of the Anambra State governorship election live from Awka, the Anambra State capital, where we're broadcasting on Channels Television. The collation center is where the attention is right now, where all the local government returning officers will head to present their results. So the returning officer will make a final declaration as to who has become the winner of this election. The entire result, almost the entire result, has also actually been uploaded on IRE. But I have my guest, my final guest for tonight with me. Laria Arogundede is Executive Director of the International Press Center, IPC. We meet again.
Yes.
It's been a long day.
Very long day. Very long day.
How did the press perform today?
I think the press performed creditably well. From reports, I'm sure we had journalists in almost all the local governments looking at what was going on, giving situation reports. Some of them even worked as journalist observers for the International Press Center and the Center for Media and Society. We're glad that we didn't have the usual incidents involving security agents and journalists. Only one incident was recorded where a journalist was barred from filming an interview by the security men, but maybe reason prevailed and invariably that journalist was allowed. We're still collating reports, but so far we've not had any incident involving infringement of the rights of journalists. In the past, we were worried that even when journalists were accredited by INEC,
We live in an era of massive innovation, true ideas that impact every industry and society, cutting-edge technology that gives you a glimpse of the future, intuitive minds that meet the demand of a revolution of talent. The future of enterprise lies in the digital world. it's full of questions and yet solutions. Join us on Tech Trends as we bring you the finest blend of technology and the latest happenings in the tech space. Tech Trends, the tech edge you need. Stay connected to the world with Channels TV Podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com. Click on podcast, select the program of your choice, and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Tap the expertise you trust. Touch the stories that touch you. Anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back. I apologize for that break in transmission. Mr. Lanre Arugundede, Executive Director of International Press Center, is my guest. You were talking about how free and how effective the press was.
Yes, that's why I would then say that in general, we could say that the coverage was quite robust. I mean, we saw what you did at Channels Television almost even before polling started. You were already stationed, capturing what was going on, talking to the voters. I was glad that you also interviewed, young people because we need to get their perspectives over this election. Many of them registered, they collected their PVCs. And remember, we were worried that we didn't see many young people coming out initially. So these are indicators that the media was very much interested in this election. And that is how it should be. This is a stand-alone off-cycle governorship election. The other ones usually have 2 or 3. Next year, we'll have Osun and the Ekiti states. But this is a standalone. It's a test of how prepared INEC is. It's a test of the integrity of the electoral process.
Fantastic. Great points you've raised as far as what we've witnessed and what we've seen so far. One of the things that kept crossing my mind while you were talking was whether or not media presence really deters electoral fraud, in your view. What do you make of that?
I think it's like an oversight, and it's a way of holding stakeholders in the electoral process accountable, because immediately they see journalists or media establishments around, they know you are going to ask questions, just as you were doing this morning, having to go there, look at the beavers, talk about it. So media presence actually ensures accountability by electoral stakeholders, because they know you are watching them. They know you would ask questions. Remember that you were going to those polling units, asking them how many people had voted so far in the morning. And the good thing was that they were cooperative. They were saying, well, we hadn't exhausted one booklet. So which means that through our reporting, people can also have an idea of what is going on. Because if we reported in the polling unit that as at the time polling was closing, according to the officials there, maybe only 2 or 3 booklets have been exhausted, and another result is declared, then it would mean that something had gone wrong. So the role of the media would always be very, very important at any election.
So what can we learn, as we begin to wind down, what can we learn from this exercise as journalists? It's been peaceful, there's voter apathy, and we've done our own part. What can we learn in 1 minute?
Well, I think a major lesson is that we as media need to hold the political parties much more accountable than we have done so far.
We see them
we focus more agents. When it comes to election, we're talking about INEC all the time. We're talking about security agencies. We're talking about the police. We're not asking questions from the political parties. One of the things that emerged in the course of this election was the report that in some remote areas, some border towns with other states, that the people were not even aware that election was going on.
Wow.
And who do you blame for that? It's the political party, because if they had gone there to campaign, definitely people would ask and say, what's happening? The election is coming. So I feel that my major takeaway really is that we need to hold the political parties much more accountable. They need to be much more involved in voter education, and if you are contesting election, you must show seriousness. Your agents must be on ground, so that we don't have unnecessary disputations.
Yeah, fantastic. we observed that agents were not on ground. Ms. Alara Arogundede, Executive Director, International Press Center, thank you for watching out for how the press fared, the fair in every election or every activities of, as far as we carry out our responsibility enshrined in the Constitution. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's the much we can do from here in Oka, the Anambra State capital. Kelly, so the election is actually not over. I'm looking at the beavers. I keep updating to check. I think we would have done almost 100%, but not up to that. But I'm just waiting for it to upload. But we did about 97% of the results have so far been uploaded.
97.
But it's not over. INEC has to make an official announcement. That's why the attention now has to shift to the collation center, where Channels Television is on ground to give you every bit of whatever is coming from there until a winner is declared. Kelly?
Well, yes, Jeff. I mean, I've had to enjoy all of the reviews from your end. Interesting conversation, fantastic and robust engagement you've had there with election observers and, of course, the CP in charge of election, Abayomi Shogunle, who I also had a conversation with yesterday. It's interesting the fact that, I mean, commendations for the police, perhaps commendations as well for INEC as well, the electoral umpire and the new man in charge. But just like you have mentioned, it's not over just yet because all eyes now are on the collation centers where we understand sorting and all of that will be ongoing now. So, but the concern, Jeff, as always, is that, you know, in the middle of the night, a lot of transactions take place. You know, when Nigerians go to sleep, some transactions get to take place. And that's where a lot of persons, and I'm sure, will be wondering what will be happening in the coming hours. Hopefully, we will wait and see, we'll watch this space and bring our viewers up to speed with live updates as soon as we get them. And let's hope that the numbers we're seeing, Nigerians indeed get, you know, to get the results that they expect. Their votes indeed get to count.
All right. Fantastic. So that's it on the program. Thank you so much. Our continuing coverage of the Anambra State governorship election. Our cameras will be on at the Collation Center. Thank you for watching. I'm Jeffrey Zomo.
And from Lagos, Nigeria, I am Kelly Egiga. Good evening.